Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Market Open. It is Wednesday, May 14th, and we are, today's the first Market Open after one of the craziest days that I think we can all agree on we had in the markets in 2025. Yesterday was pretty wild, to say the least. I have no idea what to expect today. There's not that much macro data coming out today. We do have some headlines, so that could be affecting the market, but there's not like this major CPI, PPI is tomorrow or anything like that I think could meaningfully affect the markets. But today's going to be a new day to really see if the momentum that we had yesterday with Palantir hitting all-time highs, Nvidia, which is pumping right now in the pre-markets, but Nvidia getting to that 133 range or 130 range. And then as of now in the pre-markets is up another $3, 133. Do we have the ability to maintain that momentum? I think that's going to be the most important thing to watch out for today. And, I'm excited to see. I am very excited to see how this plays out. My gut reaction is we might give some of it back, and that's okay. I mean, that's pretty normal if we give back 30 to 40% of the gains that we got yesterday on aggregate against a lot of stocks. But if the FOMO is real, and the institutional money that has been sitting on the sidelines decides that they want to step into the game, step into the arena, well, we've got some more money coming in. Folks, in the pre-markets, it is very, very exciting. Nvidia, 133.44 right now. It looks like it wants to get back to that 135, 140 range. This is happening kind of all at once. It was like very slow, and then boom, it just happened. We'll talk about why Nvidia is getting this momentum. We had a lot of news around Saudi Arabia and AI yesterday. So if you missed any of the headlines, we're going to recap all of the different reasons why the market is so excited about AI as a trade again, and the overall sector that's getting a bid by one of the countries in the world that has the most amount of money, basically unlimited money to spend on AI infrastructure. Then you got Tessie. We'll talk about Tessie. Tessie started gapping up yesterday in the overnight markets. Tesla right here, 343. Congrats to everyone who is heavily allocated toward this. Again, the earnings were not the best, but the market doesn't care. Elon tweeted a video yesterday. We'll talk about the video that he tweeted that I think is the reason for why Tesla is getting some of the momentum that they're getting right now. 2.9% up on Tesla. Robinhood hit 63.40 yesterday. Right now it's 62.97. If we can normalize the 60s, that would be amazing. So we're going to see if Robinhood can continue the momentum. They also got an upgrade today by, I believe, Raymond James to $71. So we'll talk about their upgrade as well. And then Palantir, we hit 130 yesterday, came back down to around 128. I think we closed at 128. We were at 121 to start off the day yesterday. In the pre-markets, we are back at all-time highs at 130. Shout out to Cortland. He says, I'm stuck in traffic, happier than ever. It's hard to be not that happy when you've got Palantir, Nvidia, Hood, and a lot of these names, Tesla as well, just having the momentum that they're seeing. Palantir 130.34. Palantir is now above a $300 billion market cap. And, the market wants exposure. The market wants more exposure. So we got a lot to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Also, SMCI. I mean, a lot of people are not sure why this one's gapping up. They announced this deal with Saudi Arabia for about $20 billion. I don't know if they get the full $20 billion, but that's kind of the idea, is that they're going to be getting $20 billion around their liquid cooling technologies inside of a data center. That's up 17. That was up 15% yesterday. It's up another 5% right now, 17% in total, 45.67 right here on SMCI. It was up 16% yesterday. It's up another 17% right now. So it's up in total basically 32% over the past 48 hours. And again, the reason it's up 17% is I think because of that Saudi Arabia $20 billion deal that we'll talk about. That's getting the market pretty excited. So you got SMCI getting a bit of pump right here in the pre-markets. And then HIMS, real quick, let's check HIMS. HIMS is up another 1.28%. HIMS could not let Robinhood be in the 62, 63 range. HIMS has to one-up it. So HIMS right here at 64.82. Palantir 130.50. Just an incredible stretch in the markets, dude. Just an incredible stretch. It's one of those things that reminds you why you invest, why you DCA, why you take the gut-wrenching volatility that is the equity markets and still decide to DCA into it, especially if it's some of the best companies in the world. So very exciting stuff. We got a lot to talk about. Thank you, everybody, for being here. What's up? What's up? What's up? Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Beneficial. What's up? Manveer. What's up? Julie, Arnie, Alexander. Hello. Thank you all for being here. New trade deals today. Well, we have some updates on new trade deals, so we will talk about that. That's another reason the market's probably pumping. Kevin Hassett, the economic advisor to the White House, said that as soon as Trump comes back from the Middle East, he will be announcing the next trade deal. It's like this Willy Wonka chocolate golden ticket, the thing that if you ever saw the movie, it's like which chocolate bar has the golden ticket. And it's like, who's next? Is it India, South Korea? Which one is the golden ticket? But whoever it is, I think the market's going to be excited regardless to see how this plays out. Sebastian, good morning. Robert, good morning. Andy, what's up? Trey, Christopher, Wick, John, Sydney, Mark. Thank you all for being here this morning. Good morning. Also, good afternoon to everyone across the world. And thank you all for being here. It's going to be a lot to cover today. Yesterday was crazy, dude. Yesterday, again, I don't think anyone expected Karp, Larry Fink, Elon, Jensen, Lisa Su, Sam Altman, all these people to be in Saudi Arabia. Like, I did not see any media reports that were saying, hey, these guys will be in Saudi Arabia. The one thing that I saw was Trump's going, and I was like, all right, Trump's going. He's going to, talk to these guys, sign some papers, shake some hands, and it is what it is, and hopefully get some deals done. I did not know every person who's relevant in technology would be there with him, shaking hands, being at some major conference. Like, I just didn't get any of those reports. And as a result, being able to get the level of infrastructure and investment that we got into the United States that was confirmed yesterday by the Saudis. And so as a result, it is very exciting to see how this is playing out. He did tell us to buy. And if you took his advice right there, then there you go. You have not done too bad. So look, it looks really good on Trump. We'll talk more about this Saudi stuff. But as of now, if we're getting this much investment and these many jobs coming back to the States, I think the market is going to be pretty happy with what we're seeing right now, along with the fact that if inflation can come down, you got a scenario where earnings are good, technology is continuing to be, the technological revolution that we thought it would be, inflation's coming down, et cetera. All of those are the hallmarks of what should be a path to get back to all-time highs on the S&P 500, 588, up about 0.2% currently right now in the pre-markets. All right, so let's get into the headlines for what happened yesterday, and then we'll keep going from there. So why did we get the monster moves that we got yesterday? The number one reason for that had to do with Nvidia. And Nvidia is obviously getting the benefit of this right now based on how the market reacted to it. So this is essentially what was announced yesterday, which set off the storm of announcements that created the momentum that we got. That was basically at market open and then really going into the latter half of the day when the market figured out how serious these investments were going to be. So Humane is a subsidiary of Saudi Arabia's public investment fund. This is the public investment fund that has hundreds of billions of dollars of oil money that they've been investing in tech companies for the past decade. They own a ton of Uber, a ton of Meta, etc. They now want to seriously re-architect their society because they know oil money is not going to last forever in the context of technology and AI. So Humane, which is that new subsidiary, is going to be building a 500 megawatts data center in Saudi Arabia, in the kingdom. And the first phase of deployment of that data center will be 18,000 NVIDIA Grace Blackwell AI supercomputer chips being deployed into that data center. That means NVIDIA just unlocked couple $1 billion of revenue just on that alone. And the real headline from here is not just that there's going to be Omniverse Cloud. It's not that they're going to be testing physical AI. It's not that they're going to be strengthening the nation's computing ecosystem with thousands of developers and creating more jobs. The real headline is what Bloomberg reported yesterday, which is, and this is after hours, not confirmed yet, but if this is true, then I think this is another reason why the stock's moving and people just don't want to take the chance of this being wrong. And based on just the context of yesterday, it feels like this is probably going to be true to an extent. Bloomberg's reporting that because of this AI diffusion rule that is going to be overturned, the U.S. is weighing letting the UAE buy over 1 million advanced NVIDIA chips. It would be 500,000 chips for the next 2.5 years per year. If that happens, dude, NVIDIA just unlocked tens of billions of dollars of revenue from the UAE. And it's not the H20, it's not the H100, it's it's like the chip, Blackwell, the latest architecture. It might be Rubin in the future, but it's the chips that everyone wants. The Saudis would definitely want the latest and best types of chips. The United States is weighing the idea of letting NVIDIA sell those chips into the UAE. I think that's really why NVIDIA is getting the bump. It's not just that they're able to sell 18,000 chips. It's that there is a new, you could call it capital of AI outside of the United States, which is not Europe. It's not Asia. It's the Middle East. And in particular in the Middle East, it's Saudi Arabia. And as a result, because it is Saudi Arabia and they are opening up to be that second capital of AI across the entire world, the level of investment that they're going to have to be able to put into not only NVIDIA chips, but also SMCI in terms of the liquid cooling technology for GPUs. We'll talk more about them. In terms of Micron, ASML, Dell, all these derivative companies inside of the semiconductor ecosystem that have to build the memory, for example, from a Micron perspective in order for those chips to be delivered to to the kingdom. Like, there's so many different ways that this makes sense for the broader industry, for the broader semiconductor industry, and also for AI in general. Google, Salesforce, and Oracle are committing to invest $80 billion in the kingdom tomorrow, or not tomorrow. It would be funny if it was tomorrow, but they announced it yesterday that they're going to be announcing that they're going to be investing $80 billion over the next 5 years. So you got Google, Salesforce, and Oracle. Why are they investing $80 billion? Well, they're investing $80 billion inside of data centers. And the reason they're investing is because they know that, hey, if this is a growth sector for us to be able to get more demand for our cloud, our AI workloads, for example, when it comes to Google and Oracle, and for Salesforce to bring more AI agentic workflows from a software perspective into the kingdom, then you have companies like Palantir that catch a bid, because if all these software companies are being able to invest heavily in the region and they're already investing in AI infrastructure, what does that mean for companies like Palantir that eventually are going to catch a bid off that as well? So from that perspective, yesterday was a massive, massive day in terms of the amount of people that visited the region. This is just a video right here that shows all these different people, whether it's Elon, Jensen, Alex Karp, all these guys, Sam Altman, that apparently were in Saudi Arabia and we're visiting. And right there, the Prime Minister, MBS, if you've listened to any interviews of him, this guy is not messing around. This guy wants to make Saudi Arabia the place that is going to basically rebuild the legacy of the Middle East, and more importantly, get the Middle East ready for the next technological revolution, which is AI. Trump gave him a big win yesterday. Trump took off all the sanctions on Syria. And again, the Saudi prince is looked at as the guy who's not only controlling Saudi Arabia, but controlling the entire Middle East. He is respected by everyone in the Middle East. They don't always agree with him, but they see him as the person, there's Karp right there, that will usher the Middle East into the next generation. And if he's able to be able to talk with Trump, a lot of times this just comes down to negotiating, right? Do you like the guy or not? If he's able to talk to Trump, speaks Trump's language, strokes Trump's ego, everything that you need to do to get Trump on your side, and he got Trump to get rid of the sanctions on Syria, which is a big thing in the Middle East. And as a result, he's, committing to a ton of investment in AI. Essentially, that's how you get deals done, right? Trump wants investment. Trump wants jobs. Trump wants American companies to thrive. And Saudi Arabia wants to be able to flourish in the Middle East. So from that perspective, I think this was one of the best diplomatic ties we've seen so far in Trump's first term. Although he's fighting a trade war with the entire world, and there's a lot of hostility towards a bunch of different countries, at least in Saudi Arabia, which tends to have a lot more money than a bunch of other companies or countries across the world, he is making really good diplomatic ties. And as a result, we are seeing the markets benefit from that. Palantir 130.52, Nvidia 133, Hood 62.94, AMD as well catching a bid from this. AMD right here up 4.9%. Why is AMD catching a bid? Well, kind of the same reason. If the market wants data centers, the market wants AI, and the market wants exposure to those two categories because there's this big spender with a couple $100 billion ready to invest inside of that sector, AMD is going to benefit as well. And so it makes a lot of sense. I mean, let's just look at all the semis right here to kind of see how they're all doing in the pre-market. So you got AMD and Nvidia gapping up right here about 3%, and then AMD 5%. AMD almost back to 120. That would be a big deal psychologically. Micron is down a little bit, 1.9%. Lam Research is up. Dell is up 1.2. Broadcom was up a little bit more yesterday. It's up 0.23 right now. ASML is up 0.2. And then SMCI up 18%. Again, their liquid cooling technology probably going to be important for hundreds of thousands of GPUs. The SMCI news, by the way, real quick, let me just show that right here, because that is something that is getting the market excited. It was a memorandum of understanding in Saudi Arabia, or with a Saudi Arabia company, around $20 billion of GPUs. And it was, or $20 billion of technology for GPUs. So this is the headline. A $20 billion multi-year deal with Saudi data center firm DataVolt. That is the name of the company inside of Saudi Arabia. Supermicro will supply high-density GPU platforms and liquid cooling technology for AI campuses in Saudi Arabia and the U.S. with plans to scale their U.S. manufacturing. That's it. And what it looks like is a $20 billion deal that's not going to happen all at once. It's going to happen over multiple years. But the only reason that's happening is because of this AI diffusion rule that's getting repealed by the Trump administration, that's allowing the sector to open up to the Middle East. And as a result, the Saudis are ready to spend as much money as they can in the region. So it's exciting stuff. It's exciting stuff. And that is why we're seeing the momentum in the context of AI. If you own any type of AI exposure, whether it's Nvidia, Palantir, SMCI, the semis, some of the software plays, I mean, it's it's one of those things where this Saudi deal yesterday really was important. Oracle was up about 3% yesterday, up about 0.6% right now. And that's creating the momentum that we're seeing here today. So as a result of this, my question today is going to be, how much can we sustain of this? Is like, look, there's a lot of people that are saying toppy, bearish, euphoria, frothy. I'm sympathetic to all of that, but I don't think Nvidia trading at 133 with its PE now at, I think, 29 versus 22 is toppy. Like, I just don't think that. It's been stuck for 5 months in the low 100s. I mean, I would imagine that the market's waking up and wanting exposure to a name that probably should get a PE closer to 45 to 50, which would get the stock price around that 150 range back to all-time highs. And so, you know, if Nvidia was at like 170, 180 right now before they even reported a full year of earnings, I would say, yeah, I get it. But some stocks, yeah, definitely expensive. But when it comes to a darling of AI like Nvidia that is actually putting up the growth, it's hard to say super toppy. Is there some euphoria in the market? Of course. But if that euphoria is built from institutional investors that are now seeing all these S&P 500 targets, Ed Yardeni, by the way, very respected analyst, came out with a $6,500 target. He had a $7,000 target, took it all the way down to like 5,800 in the midst of the tariff volatility. Now he's back up to 6,500. I mean, you see that research and you respect that research and you kind of trade based on that research. Again, he has a research firm. A lot of people pay for that research. What do? You say, you know what? The guy that I read every day is saying that we're going back to 6,500. And if that starts happening from Bank of America and Goldman Sachs and Oppenheimer and BMO and all these different firms, that will have an impact from an institutional perspective on how people think of the nature of AI or the nature of this market. And as a result, I think they get more allocated towards AI. And that's what we're seeing right now. So very, very exciting stuff in the broader equity markets. We will be talking about Nibis, NIBS, today on the market close. I will have a friend who comes on to explain this ticker a little bit more to me. I know a little bit about the stock, definitely not an expert on it. It's up about 20% in the past week. So he'll give us a bit of the bull case and bear case on this one because a lot more people are getting excited on this. Now let's talk about Tessie. Let's talk about Tessie because Tessie is kind of defying the odds like Tessie does as always. And let's see what Elon tweeted yesterday that's getting the market excited. By the way, did AMD just announce a buyback? Because that could be another reason the stock is running. Yep, there you go. AMD, $6 billion share buyback, bringing its total buyback plan up to $10 billion. That's what's getting AMD even more of a bid. AMD, look at that, up 6% right here in the pre-markets. Lisa Su says, you know what? Our stock is too cheap. We are buying back our stock. We are buying back our stock. There you go, dude. Shout out to AMD. Shout out to Lisa Su. I mean, makes sense, right? If you think that your stock is cheap right here after you've got all this good news coming from Saudi Arabia and investments in AI, might as well initiate a buyback. So Amit, can you explain what a buyback is? A buyback, it just means you have excess cash on your balance sheet as a company, and you decide, hey, because of all this cash, I'm going to reward my shareholders by buying back my shares. If I buy back my shares, you as a shareholder own more percentage of the company, right? So if there's 10 shares and I own 1 share, I own 10% of the company. If I buy back 5 shares and I own 1 share now, 1 out of 5, I own 20% of the company. So buybacks are a way that a lot of companies are able to essentially manufacture their EPS, their earnings per share, because if you get rid of more shares and you have earnings divided by less shares, you end up having a higher earnings per share. This is what Apple has been doing for the past decade. But companies essentially in their growth phase are not really buying back their stock, right? Because they need to be investing that capital into growth. But if you can grow and buy back your stock, which is what Robinhood's doing, it's what AMD is doing now. Tesla's not doing it because Tesla wants to just continue to allocate capital and grow. I mean, that's really exciting, right? If you have a company that can put up higher than 25 to 30% growth rates and have additional capital left over to reduce their share count, which benefits shareholders and creates less dilution and increases earnings per share, it's a hell of a combination. And that's why companies decide to engage in it. AMD saying we're going to buy back $6 billion of our stock, basically saying, hey, we think at 120, 105, 115, we are undervalued. We are still growing pretty nicely, even though data center revenues were guided to be flat in Q2, but hopefully that accelerates in Q3, Q4. And as a result, they're buying back their stock. And so the market's excited. The market's very, very, very excited currently right now. Does that mean they have less shares outstanding, hence a higher market cap? Yes, exactly, right? So if they have less shares outstanding and you take the stock price times those shares, you have the ability to, it's less about market cap. It's more about your earnings per share, right? So if you're making $1 billion in profit and you have 1 billion shares, you make $1 per share. But if you have 500 million shares, you're making $2 per share. So from that perspective, it's just more valuable for PE multiples and all those things that the stock market cares about when you get rid of those shares. Now, here's a company that's not buying back their stock because they're investing heavily. Tesla Optimus. This is a video tweeted yesterday. I'm going to turn off the music, but this is Optimus, and the market's excited. Look at this thing go, bro. Look at this thing go. AMD, by the way, at 120 currently right now. This, I think, is why the market is so excited. This is why I think the stock was pumping to almost 350 last night. It's up about 3% currently right now. It's legit dancing. The dexterity in the hands, it's not connected to anything. The feet, the movement of it. I mean, this is all through neural nets. This is all autonomous based on some of the commentary that some of the Tesla employees had yesterday. This video came out at, I think, 9 p.m. and the stock was at almost 350 by 9:30. Now it's at like 343 right now. But here's my thing. I think they're leaking these videos. I think they're leaking these videos because because Tesla's getting ready to announce something big on Optimus. And I don't know if it's now, I don't know if it's in 5 months, but I do think it's kind of now or never, right? Like, I don't think they can wait another couple of years. Elon's been teasing it so much in the earnings call. So I would imagine by the end of the year, there's going to be some announcement around Optimus. And I've been saying this over and over. I probably sound like a broken record, but my announcement is really simple. Elon needs to say any company that is out there that is able to give a LOI or a purchase order for 100,000 bots is going to get the market to realize, holy crap, this is like something that we don't even know how to understand or how to value. It's why I'm invested in 2 private AI companies when it comes to humanoid robots. I believe in this thesis heavily. It's just a question of execution now on the thesis. Farzad had a great comment underneath my post. I said, hey, what if Walmart says we want to order 100K robots? Farzad says, how about the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has placed an order for 1 million bots? I mean, just imagine, right? Just imagine there is a world in which they have many, many suitors, whether it's the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or a Walmart or an Amazon, whatever it may be, saying, hey, we want to buy as many bots as possible. Now, why would they be doing this? The simple reason is because they want to increase their margins. They want to increase their own productivity. So Amazon, easy reason to buy bots. If you don't have to pay someone $80,000 a year, you can pay a bot $100,000 one-time fee or $20,000 a year to license or whatever. They don't have bathroom breaks. They don't have HR issues. They just have to charge for 5 hours and then boom, they can start working. Like, all of that makes sense in terms of increasing margins. And then obviously individual people, how much more productive could you be if the robot could do the dishes and do the laundry versus you having to do that? I don't think we're anywhere near close to a robot being in our homes and actually being productive. I think we're at least a year away from being meaningfully productive in the warehouses. So I would say, mid 2026, end of 2026. But if Elon accelerates that timeline and we are inside of warehouses even sooner than that, I think the market's going to be very excited. Tesla right here, 342 up about 2.59%. On top of that, you have the Austin launch coming soon for Robotaxi. That one has got to be successful. Right now, a lot of people are skeptical on like really how many cybercaps are they going to get out there, and realistically, how many people are going to choose to get into a Tesla over an Uber. So a lot of the pricing unit economics of that we still have to see. But besides that, I think Optimus is the cherry on top. I mean, those Tesla earnings, most people felt the stock should be at 150, and the earnings were not good. I don't know if Q2 is going to be that much better, but Elon is continuing to inspire people with the hope and the potential of what it could be like if the 2 verticals actually play out, one being FSD and the other one being Optimus. So, I mean, this is very, very exciting to see how this plays out. Amazon already has 750,000 bots. So Amazon does have robotic arms and different robots across the factories worldwide. They don't have humanoids, from my understanding. And humanoids is a whole different world in terms of how productive that could be for the overall sector. Now, again, a humanoid robot actually doing exactly what a human does at Amazon, for a 10-hour shift, I don't think we're anywhere near that yet. I really don't. And I'm very bullish on it, but I think it's going to take at least another year and a half. We just need the neural nets, and A, to get more powerful, but B, we kind of need to be closer to AGI, because real AGI is when we can replicate the AI simulations in the synthetic data into the real world. And I think it'll take some time to get there, but it's going to get there. Like, we know that's going to happen. Like, ChatGPT 7 is going to be way better than ChatGPT 4. So eventually when that happens, I think the market will be very excited. The question is just when, and that's why right now we are waiting to see when that breakthrough is going to take place. Here's Sam Altman a couple of days ago talking about physical AI and the ramifications it will have going into the next couple of years.
At a higher level of detail, I kind of think 2025 will be a year of sort of agents doing work. Coding in particular, I would expect to be a dominant category. I think there'll be a few others too. Next year is a year where I would expect more like a sort of AIs discovering new stuff, and maybe we have AIs make some very large scientific discoveries or assist humans in doing that. And I am kind of a believer that most of the sort of real sustainable economic growth in human history comes from, once you've like kind of spread out and colonized the earth, most of it comes from just better scientific knowledge and then implementing that for the world. And then 27, I would guess, is the year where like that all moves from the sort of intellectual realm to the physical world, and robots go from a curiosity to like a serious economic creator of value. But that was like an off the top of my head kind of guess right now.
Elon also guessed 2027. He said 2027 they'll deliver 500,000 robots. I don't know if that will actually happen, but if 2027 is the inflection point, the market's going to price that in way before 2027. And I think the market's going to be very, very excited to be able to have another sector of growth. And again, look, we got $36 trillion in debt. We need growth. We need to grow out of this somehow, because we're definitely not cutting the cost. Doge isn't, as much as I love Doge as a concept, it's not really getting that $2 trillion deficit to necessarily come down meaningfully. So we need to grow out of this. And the only way to grow out of this is to have new sectors of growth that the market can get behind, that can increase margins, productivity, et cetera, get people excited to want to invest in new S-curves. And I think robots are going to be one of the ways for how that happens. Triple V, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you, brother. Triple V with the $100 super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Again, it's always funny when you guys try to guess who Triple V is. He prefers to stay anonymous, but he is crushing it in these markets right now. Absolutely crushing it. And he's crushing it using selling options. So congrats to you, brother. Thank you for being here. And thank you for the $100 super chat and tuning into the show every single day. AMD right here, 120. There she goes, up 7% in the pre-markets, 120.35. I know a lot of you AMD guys and gals have been waiting for this one to happen. So congratulations. I am a little bit more on the Nvidia train, but AMD, yes, I definitely think it was cheap at that $95, $100 range. I just wanted to add more allocation to Nvidia. And if the entire sector is catching a bid from the Saudis, yeah, AMD should benefit. I mean, SMCI, the fact that SMCI is up 20.5% is incredible, right? Like a lot of the real value is going to be coming from AMD and Nvidia, but you're going to need a lot of liquid cooling technology. And there you go. SMCI catches the bid. Nvidia right here trying to push 134 in the pre-markets right now as well. It's just an incredible new type of market. I mean, this is what Steve was saying yesterday. It feels like a different market, right? Like a month ago, this was not the market that we had. A month ago, we were afraid of tariff volatility and trade deals, and the S&P 500 was at 48. I mean, look, this is what I tweeted last night. Like last night, I was just thinking about it. I could not believe kind of how this has played out based on the momentum we saw yesterday. We had the greatest bull market ever of 2023, 2024, at least in proportional comparison to the 1995 to 2000 bull market. That got disrupted by tariffs to then give us an even greater entry into that bull market. I mean, who would have thought in a bull market you would be able to get the S&P 500 back to 2 years ago levels, 2022 levels, to then get into that market, Meta at 400, Robinhood at 30, Palantir at 60, et cetera, et cetera. And then for it to proceed after a month of it continuing to be one of the strongest bull markets ever. By the way, that month was just recovery, but within 3 days, we went from 4,800 to 520 on the S&P. We went up 10% after Trump announced the 90-day pause. So it's like that pain legit lasted for like 2 days. And it was a rough 2 days. It was ugly. It was the worst day since 2008. So and I believe that was April 8th. And then April 7th was when April 7th was down 4%. April 8th was down 6%. So those 2 days were disgusting. But then by April 12th, we recovered all that 10%. And then we went on to get back up to 5,800, which is where we're at on the S&P. So like it has just been a wild market. I don't think anyone in 2025 had this on their bingo cards, that we would have a great market in January, February, have it get destroyed by tariffs, have Trump do all these different things to kind of like delay or I guess pull back the tariffs, and then proceed on it being one of the greatest markets ever by getting all these deals in Saudi Arabia and probably more deals to come in regards to AI. And again, from all the data I've looked at, the hedge funds and the institutions, they're net short still. They don't believe in this. They're having to find a way to get exposure now. And they actually believed that Trump was going to keep 145% tariffs on China. Like all you have to do as a retail investor was not believe that Trump was going to have 145% tariffs on China. That's it. You have to just like hold your nose, buy the dip, and be like, I think this guy's bluffing, and eventually this is going to change, which I think a decent chunk of us, although we were annoyed, we were emotional, we were probably being panic hands, as Trump calls them, during the process, because it was really, ugly to see all that money just disappear. I think, well, I know the majority of retail didn't sell. So as annoyed as we were by everything that was happening, which I think it's fair to be annoyed, right? When you see your account go down 30%. But if you sold, that's, I think, the true definition of a panic hand. And the freaking hedgies, they sold. They completely sold. They got out of it. They just did not believe in the thesis. And as a result of that, they trusted more that Trump would, for some reason, keep these ridiculous tariffs on. If you just didn't believe that would happen, then, you wouldn't have to deal with that. So I think that's some of the momentum that we're seeing right now. It's some of these big guys saying, you know what, we got to come back into the markets because it's just going to be impossible for us to not have exposure to one of the greatest bull markets of all time. Speaking of trade deals, here was Trump yesterday speaking on the China trade deal. He was on an interview on Air Force One on the way to the UAE. And here are his thoughts on how he thinks this China trade deal ultimately will get done.
How did that happen that quick? Well, they met on Saturday and Sunday, and they had a deal pretty much from the beginning. It was the concept of a deal. And, one of the things that, as you know, it's sort of a 90-day deal as we negotiate other aspects. But one of the things I think that could be most exciting for us and also for China is that we're trying to open up China. Because, as you know, many years ago, we opened up the USA. Now it's time for China to open up, and that's part of our deal. And we're going to open up China. To me, that's the most exciting part. But yeah, we made a deal. The relationship is very good. I've always had a good relationship with President Xi. It was interrupted because of COVID, obviously. But outside of that, I've always had a great relationship, a lot of respect for him. And we'll see how that all works out. But we have the confines of a very, very strong deal with China. But the most exciting part of the deal, it was mentioned, but we don't talk about it yet. That's the opening up of China to U.S. business. And that would be like opening up a whole new world. And I think it would be even better for China. So I think we'll be able to make that deal, I hope.
At any point, do you foresee yourself dealing directly with President Xi on the final details of this deal?
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I'm not sure that it'll be necessary, but that happened with the UK. We were close to a deal, but we needed 1 point or 2 points on pork and ethanol. Okay, two very different subjects. And I called up the Prime Minister, who's an excellent man, Keir, excellent man. And within about 3 minutes, it was over. We made the deal. It was a good deal for everybody. And we have a lot of deals now. We have a lot of trade deals that I'd say virtually everybody wants to make a deal.
All right. So a couple things he said there that was important. He said virtually everyone wants to make a deal, which is really important because to compound the momentum that we're seeing right now, if they announce India, South Korea, Japan, et cetera, that's just going to be piling on the good news, which again will kind of fuel and hypercharge this V shape that we're seeing right now. And number two, he said, look, I don't think I'm gonna have to talk to Xi Jinping to get the deal done over the finish line. But I'm ready to talk to him if I need to. And then he gives an example that in the UK, AMD right here, 120, they couldn't get the deal done until Trump got on the phone for the last hour of negotiating to finally settle what they would do on beef and ethanol. Look, from that perspective, I think the China deal sounds like it's not fully confirmed yet, but it's getting closer and closer based on how Trump's talking about it. The fact that he says he doesn't even need to really be in the room to negotiate and that Besant's going to be able to handle it is pretty damn bullish. And it means that there likely is some major progress that's being made behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll get more talk soon. AMD right here, 121. She is getting some love after a couple months of being stuck in the 90s. She is getting some love. And if he does have to negotiate, it seems like he's comfortable enough to talk with China in a meaningful way, likely presuming that the U.S. has some real leverage here, just like we had with the U.K., given that China wants to get a deal. Remember, China's economy is not in the best spot. The U.S. economy is 1 trillion times better than the Chinese economy right now because they have massive deflation. They are trying to stimulate by pumping a ton of money into the economy. They have a real estate crisis, and no one really wants to invest in Chinese stocks. Like, they've done well over the past year, but realistically, there's not any amazing companies that the entire world is flocking to, right? Like, Alibaba is cool, but you're not getting investors across the world wanting to invest in Alibaba over Nvidia or Palantir or an AMD, right? So from that perspective, they need us. We need them. We need each other. And the question is just going to be how quick can we get a deal? If we get that next India deal, South Korea deal, then China deal, I mean, you get all these deals compounding on each other with earnings accelerating. The only issue, the only real red flag I see in this market, if that happens, is this damn 10-year that continues to spike higher, down a little bit currently right now. 4.489, that is not sustainable. The pressure will be on Mr. Jerome Powell to cut these rates to lower these yields. And as of now, it doesn't look like we're going to get that rate cut in June. Hopefully we get it in July. In July, the probabilities are 32%. In June, the probabilities are 8%. We need some more macro data, but if Trump walks back a lot of the tariff volatility and we start getting some deals and Jay Powell can't use the excuse that he's afraid of tariff inflation, then I think there's a world in which rate cuts only accelerates this market even further. And so that's why I think we're seeing some momentum that we're seeing currently right now. Austin Goolsbee, who is one of the Fed presidents, did have a couple comments today. Let me see if I can get those real quick. But I think he said something in line of what Jay Powell was saying, which is, we're gonna, yeah, this is what he said. We're gonna be a little bit more in the data, again, saying, hey, we have to wait until we get the data. So Goolsbee said, right now is the time for the Fed to wait for more information, try to get past the noise in the data. We cannot jump to conclusions about long-term trends given all the short-term volatility. Look, they can keep waiting for the data, but at some point they're going to have to make a decision. And I think the data is getting pretty obvious that we are seeing a bit of a slowdown, definitely seeing inflation come down. Inflation was down 2.3% yesterday. Third sequential month-over-month decline. I guess maybe they need to wait for another 2 months to see core that meaningfully comes down, because core is still at 2.8, so that's fair. But, if they're going to cut into a recession, that's just not going to be the best time to cut. So at some point, they're going to have to take the risk. The question is going to be when Jay Powell wants to take that risk, and hopefully it's going to be sooner than later. And that's what we got in the context of the Fed and how they're thinking currently this market. eToro will be IPOing today, I think at around 12 p.m. So we'll take a look at their IPO. It's, I believe, a $5 billion IPO. I'm not going to be buying that IPO. I just haven't gone through the numbers, haven't looked at it. But yeah, that's going to be one to look at today. The IPO market opening up. Chime filing for an IPO. By the way, we'll talk about Chime in a second. But we had Newsmax, we had Webull. If we get Klarna, we get Discord, we get all these companies coming back in, then I think it can be very, very exciting for financials and for the broader momentum around why these markets are so exciting. Chat says, just made up a new term, panic hands instead of paper hands. Yes, exactly. Panic hands instead of paper hands. That's a good way to frame it. One of you guys said right here, I can't see the exact comment, but I think I just saw it. Someone said, Amit, I just hit 25,000 in my portfolio. It's a new milestone. Congratulations. Someone yesterday hit $100,000 in their portfolio. I mean, dude, you got to celebrate these milestones. You got to celebrate these milestones. These milestones are hard to get in life. Again, I said this stat over and over, but I'll repeat it. Most Americans do not have $500 saved in an emergency savings account. I know that stat for America. I don't know about for the rest of the world, but I would imagine for the rest of the world, it's similar. It is not easy to even have $5,000 invested in anything. Forget, equity market, real estate, crypto. Most people just aren't investors. They're not part of the investor class. Chris Camillo talks about this a lot. He's kind of dedicated the rest of his life to getting more people into the investor class, because as you join the investor class, you realize all the freedom, the sovereignty, the autonomy, the fact that if you have 4,000 shares of Robinhood and Robinhood goes up $9 in a day, you're up $36,000, which is probably more than you make in like 3-4 months of salary. Like when you do the math on that, and all you have to do is sit back, you have to save up the money to be able to invest in a Robinhood or a Palantir or an Nvidia or an AMD, but you didn't really have to do anything. You just let Vlad and Karp and Lisa Sue and Jensen go on their merry little way and figure out how to make you more rich. Like, that is empowering to a different extent. And as a result, it is one of the coolest things in the world. It was so funny. My sister's account is at all-time highs. She's basically like my account: Nvidia, Hood, Grab, Palantir, heavy in those. I got her a couple of those names really early in terms of Palantir and Hood. And I was on the phone with Steve last night at like 10 p.m. So Steve's on the phone, where he's on speakerphone, and I'm talking to him, and she walks in to ask me something. I was like, oh, I'm on the phone, just 1 second. And then she's about to walk out, and I'm like, hey, are you like, are you happy? Are you? And she's like, happy about what? I'm like, the markets are up. She's like, no, I expect it to be up. And I was like, yo, she is so ungrateful, because on April 8th, the only thing I was hearing from her was, why am I down $70,000? Like, what's going on, buddy? Like, I let you invest my money. Now I'm down 70,000. I was like, it's not my fault. It's these freaking stupid tariffs. It's not me. And now when she's up, how much was she up yesterday? This week, I mean, dude, she's up like I'm looking at a portfolio right now. It's up like 110,000 like in the past month, like, and she has nothing to say. No, it's like, it's just like, but I kind of like that she had nothing to say because now she's normalizing the volatility. She's normalizing dealing with the fact that she could go, because now if she goes down another 80,000 because of whatever macro event, black swan, whatever, I think she's not going to be as affected as she was in April 8th. And she didn't really care that much in April 8th. She was just, she was just messing with me. But in general, she, it was the first time she saw serious money leave her portfolio. And now she's seeing it get back to all-time highs, but she saw this number back in February. It's bigger than it was in February, but she's used to feeling the feeling that most people in the world never feel, which is, oh, I'm up 30,000 in a day. Cool. Because tomorrow I could be down 30,000 in a day. Right. And all of us, it's such a unique feeling that we're used to that volatility, because if you stay in the markets long enough, whether it's 5,000 in a day or 30,000 a day, or for some of you guys, 300,000 in a day, right? It's part of the game. It's part of being an investor. Did she buy the dip? Well, I bought the dip for her. Yes. But she bought the dip pretty heavily in April. And, I told her back in June, I was like, every paycheck you get, we're not going to Bank of America. We're going to Robinhood. And now every time she gets paid every week, I transfer that money into Robinhood and I'm able to allocate the capital. So look, from that perspective, it's a big deal. It's a big, big, big deal. These are the days that remind us why we invest, and it could all go away pretty soon, right? We could have some crazy volatility that takes all of this back down, but I think we're all used to it and we're ready to say, hey, for the next 5 years, I don't care if Nvidia goes back to 110 from 133. I believe it'll be a lot higher than 133 over the next 5 years. And once you have that mentality, and once you understand the mentality of, hey, maybe it's just time to allocate on these opportunities versus get scared. Not saying it's not okay to get emotional, because I think all of us, including myself, got emotional in the tariff volatility. But I've said this over and over again. If your emotions dictate your actions, that's a much more serious thing than being emotional. You can cry all you want about losing money in the markets. If you actually decide to make a move like getting out of the markets, like the hedgies did, then it's a lot more serious, because now you're trying to time the market. Now it's not just crying. Now it's crying and actually being legitimately emotional by taking actions. And most retail investors can't afford to do that, right? We the only way we win is by playing the long game. As Krupa says right here, it's hard to lose if you don't sell. So how old is your sister? My sister's 31. And so, she's never really, my sister's not really a finance person. She's never cared about financial literacy. She's just never been in that part of it. And she's like a lot of Americans, right? Like they don't care about that part of the world. They're more interested in everything else that's going on in life. And so it took me a while to even convince her to let me take her money out of the bank account and put it into a brokerage account. But once she finally gave me that freedom, really June of last year, she's been able to see some pretty good results, and now she's getting used to the volatility. So been an incredible couple days for all of us. Let's see what we got going on into May 14th. Here we go. Thank you, everybody, for being here. 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. Another day to see how the markets react. Nvidia 132.88 up about 2.3%. Currently, right now, we were at 133 in the pre-markets, got a little bit of a red candle. Let's see if we can break back above that 133. Where is Palantir? Did we open at all-time highs on Palantir? Palantir, wow, 129.65. It's not literally all-time highs, but still 129.54 on Palantir. If we can hold the 128 to 130 range, I would be very, very excited. Today is the day to see who sells into the strength, who continues to buy, and how this momentum can go forward. Robinhood 62.94 looks like it wants to get back to 63. Tessie got a red candle as we opened 340. It was at almost 350 last night. Down, it's up about 2%, but it's down from the pre-market. So a little bit of a red candle, but still holding that 340 level. Palantir right here 129.07. Nvidia 132. 90, back to 133 on Nvidia. Where's AMD? AMD announced a $6 billion buyback, 119.27. That's up 6.18% on AMD. SMCI launched a $20 billion deal with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Data Vault, that is the company for liquid cooling technology inside of their first data center in the kingdom. That's why that stock is up 16% right now. Again, $20 billion multi-year deal. Don't know how many years on the deal, but $20 billion coming to SMCI, which is why the market is excited. SoFi, we do have some SoFi news yesterday that was not the best news, but it kind of also doesn't matter if you listen to what Noto said about it. So we'll talk more about SoFi in a bit. But SoFi right here, 14.49, that's up about 1.5% as well, breaking through that 14.50 range. Amazon down a little bit to 11.23. Meta 6.59, that's up 0.5%. Google 160, that's relatively flat. MicroStrategy 419, 420, that's up about 0.25%. Grab giving us another day of $5, which is nice. So hopefully we can hold on to it and maybe break through, but Grab right here, $5. One quick stat on Grab. Toyota has 222 million shares of the company. Their 13G came out yesterday. They did not buy or sell a single share. So although they're not buying more, they are the largest shareholder of Grab. They're not selling. So they are holding on to their $1 billion stake in the company. And they've had the stake for about 4 or 5 years now. Robinhood, 62.75. That's up about 0.24%. Tessie trying to hold on to 340. There you go. Palantir back to 130. Back to 130. There she is. Palantir at 130 once again. All-time highs on Palantir is 130.53. We are at 130.20 right now. Oklo, by the way, they had earnings yesterday. Oklo is up 14%. I don't know why Oklo's up 14%. Their earnings were relatively normal last night. Oh, they did beat by EPS by 30%. That's probably why. So Street wanted them to lose 10 cents. They lost 7 cents. No revenue. Market's excited. Nuclear energy catching a bid. So Oklo right there getting some momentum. SMR, another nuclear company, that's up 5.9%. So the entire nuclear sector getting some love right here. Palantir 130. Oh, there you go. All-time highs. All-time highs on Palantir. There you go. Are we going for 131? Let me check resistance right here. Let's see how much we have to wait, but it looks like it wants it. Oh, there you go. 131. 131 on Palantir. Folks, we have just hit all-time highs. 131.70. Are we going to 132? Are we going to 132 as 30,000 shares? I think we're about to go to 132. Dude, 132. 132 in like, I think that was less than 2 minutes. My goodness, 133 resistance on Palantir is 48,000 shares. 48,000 shares. Someone's buying, and they're buying aggressively, and they do not care. They want exposure to Palantir. Tesla at 340. Nvidia 134. Wow, Nvidia and Palantir kind of both getting this bid at the same time right here. Let me check resistance on 135 for Nvidia. My goodness. Robinhood back above 63. Meta at 660. Amazon at 211. SoFi 1470. Looking like SoFi maybe wants to get back to that $15 range. Nvidia right here 134.58 against Palantir 132.36. Google 160.3. Got the S&P 500 at 588. S&P 500 up 0.32%. Not up that dramatically, but some of these AI names really getting some momentum. The VIX is down about 0.3%. The Qs are up 0.57. Small caps right here are basically flat on the day. Uber, basically at all-time highs, 91.25. And then Nvidia right here, 134.78, trying to go for 135. 135 resistance on Nvidia, 748,000 shares. 748,000 shares on Nvidia at 135. AMD 122. AMD, I think you can classify this as a full-on breakout on the day. I will check resistance at 123 for AMD, but AMD is not slowing down. Again, a $6 billion buyback was announced. The market absolutely loves it, along with all the Saudi Arabian headlines. Lisa Su was in the kingdom yesterday with Jensen Huang. 123 resistance is 25,000 shares on AMD, which is really not that aggressive. Big Bear AI, I don't know what the headline is for them today, but they're up 22%. Don't know the headline, but they are pumping. So if someone has the headline, let me know in the chat. But this one getting, I don't think they had earnings, so or maybe they did have earnings, but this one up 21%. And then SoundHound as well, this one up 10%. So you're getting a lot of these risk-on names, getting some momentum. QBTS, that's up 5%. That's a quantum name. Market's definitely getting a bit more risk on. Robinhood, 63.35, potentially going for 65. My goodness, Palantir just hit 133. Guys, I don't think this is retail. Maybe I'm wrong, but if I'm not wrong, this is money that did not buy the dip in April. In fact, they probably waited on the sidelines during that 9-day green stretch, and they're realizing they just can't afford to wait. They cannot afford to wait. Robinhood right here, 63.45, trying to go for 64. Tessie back to 343. I'll check resistance on Tesla for 345 in a second. Nvidia, again, 700,000 shares away from 135. Then Palantir, let's check 134 resistance. 134 on Palantir is 49,421 shares. 49,421 shares. It's the Saudis, dude. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? If Saudi Arabia is about to give Jensen $10 billion for its chips, why wouldn't they subsidize that purchase by buying Nvidia stock? Because they know that that's probably going to pump the stock and be able to gain more equity on the stock in and of itself, right? I mean, it kind of makes sense to think that it's the Saudis. Tesla right here, 343, and then Robinhood, 63.39. All right, folks, I got to ask the question. You know what question is coming up We are seeing some momentum right here as we open up the markets. Here we go. The question is, do you trust the green? Do you trust the green? Do you trust some of the green momentum that we're seeing right now? Meta at 660, SoFi 1475, Palantir 7309. Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin doing in the midst of all this? Bitcoin 104.1, trying to make its way back to 105. SMCI still up 16%. Grab, wow, dude. Grab hasn't hit 508 in literally since February. So it's been about 2.5 months. 510 on Grab, huh? Maybe Grab's getting a little bit of momentum with everything that's going on. Again, we got a lot of 13Gs and 13Fs that came out about Grab. A lot of new banks across the world have initiated positions. You had like UBS add another 30 million shares. Bailey Gifford added 7% to their portfolio. They now have 50 million shares, and Toyota didn't sell any shares. So I think the hedgies or the institutional ownership of Grab is now 82%. I checked last night. That's the updated number. It was 78% in February. Maybe this one's being consolidated by the toots, and eventually they're waiting for that breakout. Grab right here at 510. Palantir 131. Okay, so getting a bit of a red candle from that 134 level, and then Nvidia 135, still 700,000 shares waiting. Hood just above that 63 level. Rigetti, they had earnings a couple days ago. They are up 13%. Not sure why they're up right now. Their earnings were relatively flat, nothing too crazy there, but that one catching a bid today. All quantum names catching a bid. What about GameStop? GameStop, dude, you could have bet on so many other speculative names outside of GameStop, even though GameStop should be like the biggest speculative name in the market. GameStop's flat, but a lot of these other sectors in the speculative region of the markets, they are catching a bid. They are catching a bid. But GameStop right here, not really getting that much love. Tesla right here, 340. Where is Fartcoin? Fartcoin is up 6% to $1.42 billion market cap. So Fartcoin continuing to have some momentum. CNBC is talking about Palantir. All right, let me switch over to them. Let's see what they're saying. I'm sure they're losing their freaking minds right now on Palantir. But it is what it is, right? It is what it is. Let's see. I think they had a little bit of coverage right here. Let's see what they're saying.
Its course. You know, Palantir is kind of like, you know, it's just like it's a middle distance racer winning in the long distance race. Palantir, look at that, David. What do you think happened in Palantir? They talked to Sarah again. Was that what happened?
Karp was in the mix, as he always is.
He's always in the mix.
Talks a lot.
Respectful to the president.
I mean, I guess it's also points per, it's points per word said, and
didn't matter.
It's very high.
But this is interesting. He was a Democrat supporter, and it didn't matter.
No,
I think it's interesting.
Yes,
the Biden guy.
Correct. And, was he
Harris?
They have no idea how to analyze this, bro. They're talking about Carb's political beliefs here. I mean, they can't believe it. They can't. And, Kramer says he's, bullish on Palantir after being bearish for like 2 years. But like even he probably doesn't like what's going on right now. This is a retail story, dude. Retail won. And the toots have to buy it way higher than we bought it. It's just that simple. That's what's happening right now with Palantir. And this is why it is so exciting. Now, look, if Palantir fall back to 125, sure. But if it fell to 125, even to 120, even to 115, that's like, a 10 to 11% dip. That's a real dip. A stock falls 10%. People get interested in saying, hey, why did it fall 10%? Is there a dip right here? For the people that thought this thing was going back to 60, 70, or even, 50, 40, I just think it's hard to imagine that now, given how much money is in the name. Is it expensive? Of course. But is it being normalized in triple digits? Well, it's $30 above triple digits at 130. So it is starting to get a little bit more momentum right here. Tesla 339. So that one not really holding on to its 345 pump. Robinhood 63.53. Let me check resistance at 64. Robinhood showing the ability to potentially sustain these levels. They did get upgraded today to $71. We'll read their upgrade in a second. 64 on Robinhood has 12,000 shares. That isn't going to be the hardest to break through if they have the volume. Google at 161. That's up 1.2%. And then Nvidia right here, 133.68. Up about 2.87% right now. We're getting some love. Shaggy, thank you for the super chat. What are your thoughts on APLD? I have no thoughts on this one. I haven't looked into it. I know that people like it because NVIDIA bought, but I think NVIDIA also sold their stake. So Applied Digital, I really just don't know enough about them. They're up 9%, which is awesome. I don't know why they're up 9%. I would assume it's some headline. But the reason people cared about the stock is because NVIDIA bought 2 million shares, 2.5 million shares 5 months ago, but they sold those shares. So I think the only reason people are really interested is because of that. There might be a thesis to the company as well, $1 billion, so not really the largest cap company in the world. I'll look into them more. It's up 9% right here. So if you're in the name, congrats. 8.3% up currently right now on the day. Tesla 339, Robinhood 63.27. Where is Grab? Wow. Hold on. What's happening with Grab? What's happening with Grab today, dude? Because, for Grab, it's never retail. Because A, the thing has 4 billion shares outstanding, so it can't be retail, right? Like, there's just not enough retail to buy up all those shares. B, retail doesn't know about the stock. I think I'm like the only person on YouTube that talks about, it's so ironically about Grab. I listened. This is why AI is changing the world. So I wanted to get some more coverage on Grab, right? I was up last night. I wanted to see, hey, is there any coverage on Grab? I Googled Grab, or I YouTubed Grab, and I tried to see, is there any other YouTuber that has made a video on this name so I could just listen to other commentary. I found an AI podcast of 2 voices going back and forth talking about the company's recent earnings. And look, it's obvious it was AI. I was listening to it. I was like, okay, this is obviously AI. But it was a good podcast, and it was some good analysis, and it was like, it sounded like AI, but it was still something that I listened to the entire 14 minutes because I wanted that coverage. And so this whole AI thing, dude, I mean, the fact that I actually consumed my first real piece of AI content yesterday that was like informative to me and like gave me information that I could use to progress in my own life, I just can't imagine in the next 10 years what that's going to turn into. And there was actually some personality. They were making some jokes. They were laughing. I was like, dude, this is kind of creepy, but it's also kind of crazy. So pretty incredible. My point is here on Grab, I don't think it's retail. It's got to be Toots buying because retail just doesn't know about the name and they don't care about the name. So this one might be getting a bid from the institutions. Grab right here up 2.39%. AMD 120.87. That's up 7.43%, which is incredible. Arnie says AI probably used your own analysis. It's called confirmation bias. That's hilarious. Yeah, maybe they like downloaded one of my videos and then like reworded it to come up with it. But no, in general, dude, they were just discussing the earnings and it was kind of surface level analysis. It wasn't like super, super deep or anything, but even the commentary around the numbers to me, I was like, my goodness, like this is like real analysis. Like they're like really talking about their EBITDA margins and their profitability and the risks to the business going into the next couple of years. Like it was pretty incredible. And it looks like that AI thesis on content is definitely not slowing down. Palantir right here, just below 130, 129.92. Robin at 63.08. We are seeing some red candles across the board. Nvidia right here, 133.34. Again, 135 has about 700,000 shares waiting. So that one getting a little bit more of a red candle. Celsius right here up 4%. So Celsius getting some love on the day. That's at 39.42. Wow. 39.42. My goodness. This thing was $18 in January. So this one really getting some love. What other names are we seeing here? So we talked about some of the tech names. The semi names are getting some love. Bitcoin is at 104. Melanie says Grab is 514 because today's date is 514. That's actually not the worst analysis I've heard on Grab because the stock barely moves. So the fact that it's moving today, maybe there is some expectations being built into the name. Coinbase 259. That one up 20% yesterday. Congrats to everyone holding Coinbase. Also, congrats if you own CoinL, which is a leveraged Coinbase fund. This thing is like going bonkers. A lot of people like this name, or sorry, CONL. This thing, it was up 50% yesterday. Absolutely incredible. It is a leveraged ETF against Coinbase. So again, if you invest, you have to invest at your own risk here. I wouldn't chase it right now after a 25% move, 50% move on CoinL, but still, this one had a big day yesterday as Coinbase got included into the S&P 500. All right, Tesla's losing a lot of its momentum, 337. It's 1% away from going red. Palantir still holding on to basically 130. And then Nvidia trying to get to 133. Archer, they had a decent earnings. This stock is up another 2%. They were up about 20% yesterday. So Archer getting some love. And again, some of these other spec names getting some love. DraftKings is up quietly, 12% on the week. This is one that Steve was getting a bit more bullish on 2 weeks ago. He wrote an article on them, 37.89. That's up 0.56%. I think Steve will be on the market close. I know a lot of you guys are looking for Target or looking at Target a little bit more. Target down another 2%. Yes, I think Target's undervalued. I would be buying Nvidia over Target personally, but there is a dividend there. If you think the upside is 130 in about a year and a half, I mean, it's a little bit more of a safer play, less risk on. So we'll get Steve's thoughts on Target and see if there's any momentum there. Robinhood 63.07, Palantir 129.91, and then Tesla right here 338, trying to hold on to the high 330s currently right now. What else do we see? Nebis That name is down a little bit. Seeing red candles across the board, not fully red on the day, but it would not surprise me if we give back some of this love. That means if we do go red for the day, which again would be normal given the day we had yesterday, all of that momentum in the first 15 minutes that we saw, honestly, could have been a lot of FOMO buying, even by institutional investors, but it could have been a lot of people saying, you know what, this train is taking off. We have to get in, just like buy it right now. And, that could have been a little bit bad timing on their part, given we just had a big day yesterday. But from that perspective, that could have been the reason if we end up red for the day. If there's a little bit of a red pit stop and then we continue to go green, then it's more likely just algos taking back some of the gains after the first 15 minutes of the market open. Google right here as well. Google, is Google green? I think Google's red again. Google again being stuck in that 160 range. Yeah, basically going red right here, 159.99. Now here's a chart of all the Mag 7 and their returns from May 8th to May 13th. Tesla's up 12%, Amazon's up 11, Nvidia's up 7, Apple's up 7, Meta's up 7, Nasdaq's up 5, Google's up 2.4, and Microsoft's up 2.2. Now, Microsoft's a little bit misleading because Microsoft was up 10% after their earnings, so they are kind of up more like 12%. Google is the one that's really been flat. I mean, I bought Google at this price before earnings at like 158, 159, and it's at the same price. So the I.O. event coming up on May 20th, I'll be streaming it. I think Sundar's really got to prove to the market that they're not just a search company. They're not just a advertising company, that they're a full-on AI company, which I believe they are. I think the market also knows they're an AI company. They're just afraid of giving them an AI multiple if their search revenues are declining. And so from that perspective, that might be one of the things we have to watch out on Google. Yeah, we're getting some real red candles across the board. Things are still green, but they could easily go red. Palantir went from 133 to 129, Nvidia 134 to 132, and then Tessie from almost 347 to 338. So we are seeing a little bit of that broader weakness. Grab is 513. Grab from 518 to 513. A 510 close would be very bullish for Grab. That one coming down with the rest of the algos. SMCI was up 20%. SMCI is now up 11%. Yeah, there you go. That is absolutely across the market algorithmic. If an SMCI goes up 20% to up 11% and Nvidia goes up 5% to up 2%, that is the entire market taking a little bit of a haircut, which again, I kind of expected because we had a really green day yesterday. Didn't expect that big of an open. But now we just have to see if that continues to go red on the day. S&P is red. There you go. S&P is red. All right. Again, I think everyone should be expecting giving back some of the gains from yesterday. You don't get those types of gains without giving back a little bit of it. This is again what I talk about being an investor, right? So like you were up 40,000 yesterday, you might be down 15,000 today. It's like you got to be, it's cool to be up 40, but you also have to be willing to get to those up 40 days by taking the down 15 days because things don't just go up forever. You got to deal with the volatility in between. So would not be surprised, but if we can hold on to some of this momentum, even hold on to some of these levels, like if Robinhood holds the 60s, I would be very happy. It doesn't need to gap up all the way to 65. Speaking of Robinhood, here's the upgrade they got this morning from Needham. We continue to be impressed by Hood's product expansion. Not only has the company showed breadth in its product suite, but also depth, and we believe Hood will become more competitive with crypto. In addition to the Bitstamp acquisition, Hood acquired a Canadian company this week. We view both transactions as increasing Hood's depth in crypto for institutional users and internationally. Finally, we see more crypto-specific rollouts on the horizon, and we would expect more asset listings in the U.S., as well as possibly Hood's own chain or some variant of that. We believe these additions would materially increase Hood's product depth. We are raising our price target to 71, including near-term catalysts as something to look forward to, including Hood's new June France crypto event as a positive. So that's the upgrade this morning on Robinhood up to that $70 range. Michael says, is it me or does the market go up and down based on the weather? Yesterday, sunshine green, today, rain red. That's not a bad point. Today is rainy, at least in the East Coast, and we are red. So maybe we are following the weather patterns. Nubank right here, 1347. So Nubank had a great earnings. They missed on EPS by 1%. They beat on revenue, I think, by 5%. They are growing revenues 40% year over year. This stock was down 7% yesterday after hours. Kind of didn't know why. There was no FX headwinds, so it was kind of just like, I guess, a short-term reaction. But this stock up 2.5%, probably, hopefully by the end of the year, having a shot to get back to all-time highs, which is that $16 range. It was stuck at $9, mainly because of issues with the Brazilian real in regards to currency exchange. Now it's at $13.45. So if you own Nubank, congrats. This one definitely not doing too bad after those earnings. Nvidia right here, 133, and Palantir, wow, back to 131. Look at that. From 133 to 128, back to 131. momentum not necessarily stopping right there. UNH, okay, a lot of you guys have been asking United Healthcare, is it a buy? Here's my thoughts. I think it's probably a buy. I mean, like, it's hard for me to imagine United Healthcare being down 70% over the next 5 years, or down 50%. It's down 45% year to date. Insanity. This doesn't happen for a company that's one of the top companies in the Dow Jones. Like, this just doesn't happen. I don't think it's going to last in terms of it being down this long. However, they've got some really nasty headlines. They've got some really ugly headwinds in regards to prescription drug pricing. And people are just not fans of United Health in terms of some of the skeletons in their closet. What are some of those skeletons? Well, they're overpricing, their ability to price gouge consumers, the kind of the hiding of different medical receipts. There's some articles that have been coming out about them. I think if you buy it, you've got to, hold your nose, buy it, and assume over the next 5 years it'll recover. I don't think it's crazy to buy the stock down 50%, given it's one of the biggest stocks in the Dow Jones. But I also think there's other opportunities that maybe have less headline risk than a United Healthcare. So I'm not buying it, but is it a buy over the next 5 years? Yeah, I think so. I don't think United Healthcare is going out of business. So I wouldn't touch it because I think there's other names. Like, I'd honestly rather buy more Nvidia at 135 than buy United Healthcare, just because the upside on Nvidia is kind of obvious, whereas United Healthcare, you've got all these questions. But, is there a dip that is going to attract people? Yes. I think it's going to be hard for it to stay at these levels over the next coming years. Google right here, 160.72, and Microsoft, new 52-week highs, 451. 451 on Microsoft. XLV, which is the ETF for all the healthcare companies, this thing is flat. It's been pretty flat for the entire week. So J&J, Pfizer, all those names, I mean, they're down a little bit. They have a little bit of weakness from Trump's executive order, but nothing too crazy. Pfizer actually is down 1% on the day, but overall, the PBMs are getting more affected than the actual pharmaceutical companies in and of themselves. Again, I just think it's easier to buy Nvidia than buy UNH. Because if you're buying UNH, you're not buying it for the growth story. You're buying it because, it's a dip. I should buy it because it's going to recover. Well, if that recovery takes a lot of time, which from all the data I've looked at and some of the articles I read yesterday, it's a lot of headwinds. You just want to kind of, give it the time to recover. And yes, it's a safe place because it's a healthcare company and it's the biggest one in the United States. But I don't think the recovery is in a month. And if it is, I would be very surprised, but I think it's going to take a little bit more time to recover. Robinhood 62.92, SoFi. Okay, let's talk about SoFi. So SoFi had some news yesterday. Chime, which is going public, is not using Galileo anymore, which is their biggest, which was the tech platform that integrated the entire stack. So SoFi right here, or Chime on their S1, which is the document you put out when you go public, they said yesterday, in addition, transactions have historically been processed by Galileo, which is owned by SoFi, a third-party payment processor, though we are in the process of transitioning our members' transactions from being processed from Galileo to Chime Core. Now, that could be explaining why SoFi was down year over year and quarter over quarter in overall Galileo accounts, right? That makes sense because they lost their biggest customer, which is Chime. But Anthony Noto responded to this and said Chime's disclosures in their SEC Form S1 were factored into our company guidance and the tech platform guidance previously communicated. We remain confident in our outlook and require no change to that previous guidance. So basically, SoFi saying, hey, it's not that big of a deal. We factored losing Chime into our guidance. So you shouldn't be freaking out about, is Q2 going to be bad because we're losing our biggest customer? But from a more fundamental perspective, as someone who's analyzing the core tech part of the business, that's not good. There's no way to slice it. That's not good. You cannot lose your biggest tech client in a part of the business that's growing 10% year over year and then say that you are not just a bank, you are a tech company. Again, I'm not trying to throw shade at SoFi. I have options. If it goes to $20, I'll make a lot of money. So I want this thing to pump. I have a big tax bill next year. I'm planning to hopefully sell these SoFi options and make a dent in that tax bill. That would be one of the ways that hopefully we can pay Uncle Sam. But I'm just saying, losing your biggest tech client is a no-go, dude. That's just not good. And I don't know how a SoFi bull can necessarily justify wanting a tech multiple when your biggest client says, hey, we don't want to use your shit anymore. We're going to do it ourselves. It's just, it's not good, dude. It's just not imagine if a ton of people left Robinhood, because in this case, Robinhood's, B2C consumers. Imagine if a ton of people left Robinhood for a new brokerage app. And they're like, we don't like Robinhood. We just want to use this new brokerage app. I would have an issue with that. I'd be like, as a Robinhood bull, I'd be like, why are they leaving, right? What is so good about this new platform that they don't want to use the platform that I thought had this big moat because of user experience, engagement, et cetera? Where is the moat to Galileo if Chime, the biggest customer, can just say, we want to leave? And so I don't think it's a death blow to SoFi. I still think they're undervalued. I just do think for the people wanting a tech multiple, it's going to be hard to get it. It's going to be really hard to get it when you lose some of those big clients. So that's the headwind right here on SoFi. But SoFi was breaking above 1475 in the pre-markets, right? So, I mean, like, it's really all about algorithms and momentum and rate cuts to really get this one to get back into that $20, $17, $18 range where it was in January. But as of right now, that tech multiple is a bit of a headwind on the stock. Robinhood goes red on the day, 62.53, giving back some of those gains. Nvidia, 132, still holding on to its green, but very close to being red. And then Palantir, 129.68, currently right now on Palantir. Ask Tanner what he thinks about this news. I will ask him. I'll see what he has to say. I would imagine he would not like it. I don't think any SoFi bull would enjoy seeing this. Again, I still think SoFi is undervalued. It's really tough to lose one of your biggest clients, especially because the question is why? Why did they leave? Right? Like SoFi paid a good chunk of money for Galileo and Technisys back in 2020. I think it was $1 billion for both of the companies combined. Like, is it just a commoditized B2B payments API that can be done via another company like a Stripe, which I know they're not exactly in that space, but if other companies can do this stuff, maybe that explains the lack of growth on the tech platform. And I think that's something that the market's going to have to deal with right now. PayPal, 7309. Meta goes red. All right, so we're seeing a lot of things go red, which is okay. But I think we're going to see some weakness. S&P 500, 586. That is red as well. So we got to see if we can hold on to this red or hold on to some of the green that we have before everything goes red. 71% of you say, yes, you trust the green. 71% of you say, yes, you trust the green. So I guess here's the next question. Who's selling into this? Who's taking some profits? Who's buying some puts? On Palantir in particular, I sold covered calls for 140 for next week. If we get to 140, I will manage the position, but I do think it's going to be a bit tough to get there. Granted, if we get there, it's not the worst problem to have. So I sold some covered calls for Palantir at 140, only 5, not my entire position. So just 5, small part of my position, but still wanted to take in a little bit of premium. Outside of that, I don't think covered calls on Nvidia and Hood are crazy. Well, let me rephrase. I think covered calls on Hood aren't crazy. I think covered calls on Nvidia are just scary right now. I know it's pumped a lot, but any new headlines we get around AI data center build-outs across the world, especially this new momentum from the Saudis, and potential more headlines in terms of them opening up their kingdom, I think it's going to be hard to deny some of that momentum. So I have no covered calls on Nvidia right now. I'm completely raw dogging it with Nvidia. And with Palantir, I'm at 140s. And with Hood, I'm looking at 65 to 70. I don't think it's that crazy to go to 65, 70 over the next couple of weeks, especially because Hood's more high beta. But Nvidia, I would be a little bit more scared. AMD from 122 to 118. AMD still up 5% on the day with that new buyback that Lisa Su announced, but that one is down a little bit from that 122 level. Amit, outside of any cover calls, are you ever selling any Palantir shares to keep on the sidelines to buy the dip, or are you not touching it? Palantir really is a no touch for me. It's kind of, you keep it there. I mean, even to pay my taxes, I freaking sold Hood over Palantir. So whenever someone questions my loyalty, and I was up a lot on Palantir. On Hood, went back to 40 and my average was like 30 at the time. So it was kind of annoying, but yeah, I just like, it's, she's the crown jewel who just, who sits in a little corner, and you just, you just let that one play out. So yeah, I mean, look, I just like to buy the dip. I wouldn't sell Palantir. I got into Palantir too early. It doesn't make sense right here. So, but selling covered calls against it, I don't think it's crazy, dude. The stock's aggressive right now. Multiples aggressive. The premiums are even more aggressive. So if I have to end up rolling the covered calls, I'll deal with that. But this is not like Palantir at 25. You're writing a covered call at 30. This is Palantir at 130, writing a cover call at 140, and the premium is still freaking like 3% in a week or some ridiculous. Like, it's one of those things where I don't think it's crazy to get some of that premium off of. Robinhood trying to get back to 63 right here, 62.99, and then Tessie from 337 back to 340 here right now. Why did you select 140? It wasn't really anything intellectual. I was just like, dude, another $10 for this to pump. Like, and for that market cap to go up another basically 50 to 75 billion. I just think that's really aggressive. And it's for next week. It's not for a month out. It's for next freaking week. I was able to get that type of premium. I mean, I just like, the market was really willing to say, hey, we're like, so let's assume I bought 100 shares of Palantir yesterday at 130, right? And I sold the covered call based on the collateral, based on the strike price of the moment, because that's how you kind of calculate the premium if you're not using your average. If you bought 100 shares yesterday at 130, so that's 13,000. I got $205 of premium, $2.05 per share, $205 for 100 shares in one contract. 205 divided by 13,000 is 1.5% in a week. You do that times 4, that's 6.3% in a month. Off saying Palantir might not get to a $350 billion market cap in the next 7 days. Maybe it does. Maybe it does. But, you know, it's pretty aggressive here. So we'll see what I have to deal with when it comes to that position, and maybe could pump there. But I do think this is why covered calls are attractive in this type of a market, especially after a stock is already up so much. You can really leverage the upside on the volatility. And if it does go to 140, the question is, how, like, you know, let's say your covered call goes underwater and gets to 140. Okay, is it going to go to 150, 160? Is it going to be like completely screwed? Or is it going to chill around that 135, 140 range and kind of mature out in that level? Because if that is the case, your covered call is not really underwater. So I think when stocks are this elevated and they've already made such a big move, it's not crazy to sell some of that volatility to the upside and get some of that premium. Robinhood right here, 62.85. TFC, that's down a little bit on the day. Meta, 657. Where's JP Morgan? JP Morgan is at 263. That's down, or that's up about 0.35% currently right now. Where is Grab? What is Grab's volumes? Grab is sitting at 514, doing a nice job holding 2% on the day. SMCI still up 13%. Grab volume, 10.8 million. Their average volume is 40 million. So they've done 25% of their volume in the first 30 minutes of the trading day, which seems a bit unusual. Seems a bit unusual. Oh, we got a headline from Boeing. Qatar is signing an aviation agreement to purchase jets from Boeing. Trump is in Qatar right now. Boeing is up 0.74%. It was up, I believe, 5% yesterday. It's up about 15% for the month. Look at that chart right there. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. That's what you got on Boeing, getting some really nice momentum. 204.85. So it looks like we're getting some more agreements from Qatar on defense. Qatar on defense. Let me see if I can pull up those headlines. But that is one of the reasons why Trump is in the region, to try to get some more defense spending and some more money flowing into these countries. Here's a clip of Trump and the Emir of Qatar right now.
We're extremely honored to have you here. We're very excited, very happy. It's a historic visit. And I don't know if you know that you are the first American president to officially to visit Qatar, right? So we're very honored. We're very honored.
Wow. First American president. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he was the first American president. You guys say Trump is signing agreements right now. Okay, let's pull that up. So they're going to be buying a ton of Boeing jets. And it looks like they also will be agreeing to put more into defense spending. And yeah, there you go. Here's Trump right here signing these agreements.
Thank you very much. We had a couple of hours of great meeting with the president, and we discussed many issues, our great bilateral relationship, and also the situation in the region. Of course, I think after signing these documents, we are going to another level of relationship between Qatar and the United States. So I just wanted to thank you, Mr. President, again for this historic visit. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, thank you very much. And this has been a very interesting couple of hours. We discussed the world. We discussed Russia and Ukraine, where you've been a tremendous help in so many different ways. We certainly discussed Iran, where it's been really an interesting situation. I have a feeling it's going to work out. I think it's going to work. It's got to work out one way or the other. We know it's going to work out. But you were of great help, and other things. But in particular, trade. The trade is the Kelly's telling me from Boeing that's the largest order of jets in the history of Boeing. That's pretty good, and that's
wild, bro. They are really trying to get on his good side. The largest order of jets ever. I'm going to try to get the exact number, but that is pretty aggressive.
140. Was that a 140 or 160? Well, yeah, but you're right. It's actually 200, including the 40. So it's over $200 billion. But 160 in terms of the jets. That's fantastic.
All right, so that's the number, about 200 billion.
So that's a record, Kelly. And congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there. Get them out there. But I just want to thank you. We've been friends for a long time, long before politics. Well, for you, it was politics. For me, it wasn't, right? But we've been friends for a long time, and this is an outstanding man. He's a great man, and we're going to help each other. The United States is in a very strong position militarily. We have the best equipment anywhere in the world. You're buying a lot of that equipment, actually, and I think we're going to see some of it in action tomorrow. At the we won't call it an air fair, but it's going to be sort of an air fair. We're going to be shown a display that's going to be incredible. They have the latest and the greatest of our planes and just about everything else. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun and very interesting. But I just want to thank you for the friendship, for the long time friendship. And again, long before any of this stuff, we just liked each other. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. But we always had a very special relationship. And we came from Saudi Arabia, where we have another great man over there that's a friend of yours. And you two guys get along so well and like each other. You sort of remind me a little bit of each other, if you want to know the truth. They're both tall, handsome guys that happen to be very smart. But he's also a very special guy, and it's good to see all the relationships forming in the Middle East, because the Middle East is really being talked about all over the world, and we're having a lot to do with it. We're helping a lot, but they're doing a tremendous job. So I just want to thank everybody very much for being here. I want to thank the media. The media has been very fair, actually, and it's a great honor to be with you. This is, you take a look at this room. This room is the real deal. That's called white marble. It's very hard to buy. Believe me, I know very well, because you try to buy it, you can't buy it. And you just take a look at what you have here. It's been incredible what you've been able to build as a nation. And we're with you all the way, and you know that.
All right, there you go. Trump's getting these deals done. He's getting these deals done. Lodge, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thanks for that news on Boeing Emit. You got that real quick. I made a little. Dude, I've realized at the Toronto meetup, I talked to a couple of you guys. You guys day trade. And you have me on in the background while you're day trading. And then, you know, I'll say something and you'll like look at the chart and then you'll like take a position. Like I talked to this one guy who made like $30,000 or something on some name. Because I mentioned, I think it was Intel or something. I said something about it. And then he was like, oh, Intel. And then he looked at Intel and he put in a trade and then he got out 5 minutes later. So for those that use some of the news headlines from the stream to day trade, yeah, I'm happy I can be helpful right here. Boeing right here up 2%. So if you just got into Boeing at that 190 or that 204 level, you're at 207. $3 is a big deal if you're playing with 30, 40,000 shares, which is, you know, or even 5,000 shares, whatever it is. When you day trade, you kind of put in a lot of cash. You're hoping for like a couple pennies of a move, if not, you know, 30 cents, 40 cents, 50 cents. If you get a couple dollars, that's amazing. And then you get the hell out. And that's how some of these day traders make their money. I've done a couple of day trades. I think I've been doing a little bit more swing trading. It is addictive. I can't lie. Like making $500 in a day trading is kind of crazy. And I've talked to some people who make a lot more than that in a day and they do it consistently. The problem is I don't think I could ever day trade because I'm doing the show. Because the time to day trade is realistically, from the people I've talked to, 9:30 to 10 a.m. I don't know if you guys know this stat, 80% of the stock market's volume on a daily basis happens from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Eastern. So those first 30 minutes, and then you get a little bit more from around 3:40 to 4 p.m. into the close. That's why it's called that power hour. But realistically, if you're going to day trade, you need volume, you need liquidity, you need lots of counterparties playing with you inside of the trade. And you kind of can't do that during lunchtime because people are getting lunch, right? So I don't think I could ever become a day trader, even if I really wanted to, because just like I don't know how I would do it and do the show at the same time. But for those that do day trade and have me in the background, yeah, thanks for having me here and thanks for being part of the show. Jamie says I'm up 160K this week. Dude, the numbers this week, this month, over the past couple of days for a lot of you, whether you're day trading or long-term investing, I mean, it is pretty incredible. Palantir back to 130, Nvidia 132, even Tessie back to 340. I mean, we're not really seeing red candles that are turning into a trend, at least not yet. These names are holding on to 1 or 2% green. Even Robinhood basically at that 63 level. We are still seeing the market want to have momentum, at least on these tech names. S&P 500 basically flat. It's down 0.202%. And then AMD holding 119. So not too bad. Not too bad at all. Okay, let's look at Goldman Sachs. So Goldman Sachs had a large recession probability back in April. They have lowered that recession probability. Let's get a institutional perspective here on why they are getting more bullish on the markets.
following that trade war detente with China. Goldman Sachs chief U.S. economist David Merrickle joins us here at Post 9. David, great to have you back. Thanks for the time. So we've talked a lot about the Goldman House view through the depths of April. How much positive would you say you're turning, if at all?
Yeah, I would say we've avoided a worst case scenario. So we've avoided the sort of production disruptions that we would have seen with tariffs at levels that would have blocked trade between the U.S. and China. We had already assumed in our forecast that a 145% increase in the tariff rate was not going to be sustainable. But the decline after the deal was a little bit larger than we had previously assumed. So we now think that the increase in the U.S.'s effective tariff rate will be about 13 percentage points versus 15 before. That means a smaller increase in prices. That means a slightly smaller tax-like hit to disposable income and to consumer spending. And we've also seen, of course, over the last month, a gradual easing in financial conditions, which means, surprisingly to me, that despite having tariffs that are about 8 times as large as in 2019, markets taking it pretty well. And so that means less financial amplification of the growth hit. So
some of your peers might argue, a 13-14% average tariff is still a tax hike, one of the biggest since the Second World War, and the economy's got to absorb that. How hard will that be?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I would say we are in a good place, as good of a place as we could be to absorb that, in that profit margins are starting high, the layoff rate is starting low, private sector balance sheets are starting in very good shape, and so companies probably won't be jumping to lay off a lot of people. We do think this will be a year where economic performance is mediocre. 1% GDP growth is about half of our estimate of potential. We think the unemployment rate will drift up a little to about 4.5%, but a less bad outcome than we had assumed under higher tariffs.
That kind of muddle through or, just above stall speed type of outlook, where does that leave the Fed? Because if they're still getting job growth, if it's just a slow drift higher in the unemployment rate, and they're still going to be a little bit stringent about trying to get PCE inflation down toward 2%, does it just mean on hold indefinitely?
I think the message from the FOMC has been inflation's high. Some survey measures of inflation expectations are high. The bar to cut is going to be higher than it was in 2019 when they did move very preemptively. This time, they want to see some real evidence in the hard data. What we're penciling in, I would say, is mediocre, but not quite weak enough to draw them to feel like they have to cut in an environment where high inflation makes it a little bit awkward. So we took out the insurance cuts from our forecast. We now have them waiting to cut until the tariff effects on inflation have passed and inflation has come down. So we have the first cut now in December.
So, look, if Goldman thinks we're not getting a cut till December, which their logic is not crazy about that, I would just hope, Jay Powell pulls the trigger before. I think Trump's not going to tolerate that if we have to go a full year, basically, without a cut. And, that is something to watch out for because we could get a lot more volatility in his attempt to get that cut. I think the market is kind of priced for at least 2 cuts right now. If we're not going to get cut till December, that's not the best for normalizing the 22 times forward that we're trading it on the S&P. So I would just hope in some way, shape, or form, we can get that cut, hopefully around July, August instead.
Continuing to next year. Same 3 cuts, same terminal rate of 3.5 to 3.75, but different motivation and starting later.
That's becoming an increasingly common view, that December cut. We were talking about the 30.
And again, Bank of America has no cut for this year. So it's one of those things where we need inflation to come down aggressively, or we need Trump to really walk back those average tariff rates for Jay Powell to be confident to say we don't need to be as restrictive as we are right now.
Year yield today, watching House Ways and Means do this 17-hour markup. Are Treasury yields reflecting anything that's happening in this process?
I think, the market is kind of coming to terms with maybe it's not as likely that they'll be forced to cut soon. And so that has some implications for the back end as well, if the cuts come later. We wind up, thinking about kind of the longer term terminal point, the neutral rate anchor for the back end in basically the same context as before. I do think that we've learned that the administration doesn't want to hit financial markets and the economy too hard. That means, well, if you have 35 rather than 45% probability of recession, less risk of the very deep cuts that you would normally see in a recession. That, too, has implications for where the curve should be, and I think that's part of what's being priced.
I mean, it's such a whipsaw in the narrative when you consider that we were talking about, these punitive tariff levels possibly alongside this idea we're going to get some fiscal contraction. right? I mean, whether it was through Doge or the budget process. And now it looks as if we're not really going to have much fiscal payback, at least on offer right now.
I think that's right. The tariffs, you can think of like a tax hike, but the tax cuts, the spending cuts, some spending increases, our assumptions there have not changed that much since Inauguration Day. I think on net, the effect of these things on the economy would be small relative to the tariff effect. The economic picture for 2025, to me, is all about the tariffs. Some aspects of that, the tax-like impact, I think are pretty straightforward. We feel pretty confident in the impact. Other effects, like the effect of uncertainty on businesses willing to hire and invest, there's a lot more uncertainty there.
Where's the trend?
Okay, so that's Goldman's view of the economy right now. We do have some breaking news right here. I believe this is being reported by Reuters, if I'm not wrong. Trade tariff deals with Japan and South Korea said to be close. Trade tariff deals with Japan and South Korea said to be close. This is actually very consistent with what Kevin Hassett said yesterday, which is that the next deal will be announced as soon as Trump. Tesla, by the way, back to 342. The next trade deal will be announced once Trump gets back from the Middle East. So that's, I think, on Monday. Maybe over the weekend we get some rumblings of what that deal looks like. Again, we got the Qatar news. They're buying 160 Boeing aircrafts. Here's another one. China pauses export control measures against 28 U.S. entities for 90 days from starting from May 14th. And then China pauses unreliable entity list measure on 17 U.S. entities. Wow. That came out 10 minutes ago. China is pausing their export control measures against 28 U.S. entities. I don't know what exactly those entities sell, but they were under export controls. That is now paused for the next 3 months. And they've taken off 17 U.S. entities off the unreliable list. That is a really good sign of good faith from China in terms of them being able to say, hey, we are ready to negotiate. We are ready to trade. We are ready to give you guys concessions. Obviously, they're going to want something from the United States as well. But the point is, it looks like they're getting a lot more friendly to making a deal, which again, this is why I'm seeing a lot of the sort of bearish takes that you should fade this rally, sell into this. It's all done. I don't know how the market says a China deal, a Japan deal, a South Korea deal, an India deal is bearish. Again, the only red flag I'm seeing is rate cuts and maybe not getting them until December, as Goldman Sachs says. But if we get trade deals, we get tariff rates to come down, we get earnings momentum, and we get all this AI investment, what exactly is the reason for the S&P to go back down to 5,000? Like, what is the whipsaw that should bring us back down? Now, with Trump, everything's unpredictable, but like, we went through a decent amount of unpredictability over the past couple months, and you would think now that the majority of it, the worst of it, hopefully is baked in. So I don't know, dude. If we get a lot of good concessions and deals and momentum, if we just go back to where we were in January, I think it's going to be hard for the market to necessarily fade it. Again, these money managers, they get paid for performance. And if they are not performing this year, if a lot of you guys are up 20 to 30% and these guys are up 1 or 2% or basically flat because they went into money market funds, not to mention there's $7 trillion on the sidelines in money market. There's just a lot of ways for the bid to be perpetually in place if there's good enough news to get people excited. And I think we would have to see some really bad headlines or macro volatility for that. We would have to see inflation like aggressively accelerate. Well, that's not happening. And with the tariff rates coming down, it's probably not going to happen. We would have to see the labor market really collapse. Well, if that does, the cushion right here is that the Fed's going to cut rates, which is actually good for equities, but the labor market's not collapsing. I mean, that's one of the reasons Jay Powell's not cutting is because the labor market's too good. So there's a lot of ways to slice it, but it ends up turning into a market that doesn't have to be super bullish, but it also definitely does not have to go back down to the April lows. Google right here getting a little bit of a bid, 162. That's up 1.72%. I'll see if there's any headline on Google that's causing it to move because it was flat the majority of the day. But that one right there is getting some love. And then HIMS, we haven't looked at that all day. HIMS is down. HIMS down 3%. I don't want to hear any complaints about HIMS being down. It's up a lot. HIMS now year to date is up 145%. In the past 6 months, it's up 196%. In the past month, it's up 118%. So that one taking a little bit of a breather. Mark Cuban went on the HIMS House podcast. It's this like community podcast that's dedicated to covering the company. I might go on that podcast in a couple weeks, but they got Mark Cuban yesterday. I haven't watched the episode yet, but I think Mark Cuban really likes what Hims is doing because he's doing stuff in the cost plus drugs when it comes to getting prescription drugs to be way cheaper and not have a markup that a lot of these pharmaceutical companies charge. So him, Martin Shkreli, I mean, you're getting a lot of people that understand the world of pharmacy and finance to be excited about the name, but the short float went up yesterday. So I still am confused why the shorts are this aggressive on the name, but a lot more people are getting excited about the company itself. 10:30 sell-off. Yeah, maybe. We got 8 minutes until 10:30. We already had a little bit of that at 9:45, so we'll see if that continues at all. Nebis is down. That is correct. Google 162. Don't see any headlines of Google, but that is green. David Rawson, thank you for the $10 super chat. Appreciate you being here. He super chatted 100. I think you were referencing your milestone of 100K. So congrats to you and congrats on the milestone. Congrats to everybody on hitting some big milestones this week. So thank you for the super chat. King Eamon, thank you for the $5 super chat. Thanks for being great, Amit. I'll see you at the next Toronto meetup, hopefully sooner than later. Definitely want to come back to T-Dot. I really love my time in the city. So hopefully we'll be there again pretty soon. Shout out to Adam. We got Adam in the chat. He says, I got balls of steel. I'm managing underwater hood and Tesla covered calls. No worries. Shout out Amit. You're the best. Thank you. Shout out to Adam. Again, we'll get him on the channel pretty soon. He sells covered calls and puts for a living. And he retired, I think, last year. And now this is what he does. So he is pretty keen at figuring out how to manage some of these positions that go underwater. And then Tony, thank you for the $10 super chat. Amit, any thoughts on Roblox? So I don't have any thoughts on Roblox. I do think the company is exciting. One stat I will give you guys that I said last week is that after Roblox's Q1 earnings, half of their daily usage time, all of their daily usage time is half of Netflix's watch time, which is insane to me because Netflix is used by 300 million people. Roblox does have 100 million daily users, but if you add up all of the usage time on Roblox, it is now half of all the watch time on Netflix. That to me is signs of product market fit and a real moat. So I've never gotten into the name. I do think, it has momentum behind it. It's up 33% year to date. It's outperforming a lot of other stocks. Don't own it, but I think there's definitely a thesis there. In terms of valuation, I have no idea if it's expensive or not. I just haven't looked at the numbers, but definitely feels like there's some thesis right there. Tesla right here, 339, getting whipsawed down from 343 back to 339. Nvidia 132, and then Palantir 129.58 here right now. Also, yeah, we had a Perplexity PayPal partnership announced today. So great for PayPal, but also big for Perplexity. Perplexity partners with PayPal to launch chat-powered commerce. Perplexity users in the U.S. will soon be able to book travel, shop, and buy tickets directly in chat, paying with PayPal or Venmo. PayPal handles payments, shipping, and support. The deal comes as Perplexity closes a $500 million raise at a $14 billion valuation. One thing I'll say is this does not look bullish for Google, right? Like, if I can book airplane tickets by chatting inside of Perplexity, hooked up through PayPal, that's something I should be doing on Google, right? I should be able to get, and those are the most profitable searches where you're like, hey, flights to San Francisco on May 5th. Like those are where Google's like, hey, we can show you the right result and you click on it. We're going to get a decent commission by the airline because we connected you to that ticket. If that's being done via AI, it's just a different world. Now, again, that's not a death kill for Google, but the point is, I think this is the reason why the market is scared about Google right now. It's like if more of this stuff happens and Google is not dominating the space because ChatGPT, Perplexity, Grok is letting you engage in commerce via AI, then what does that mean for their overall moat, right? And that's why I think the market is a little bit more scared right now for Google. PayPal getting a little bit of a pump right here, up about 1% of the day, $73 right here on PayPal. Now, granted, I do think Google would be the place where I would use AI to buy stuff because I already buy a ton of, I always buy my plane tickets through Google. So I would imagine, with AI, that only accelerates. It's just for other users, some of those searches might not happen on Google. But the stock is up right here, 162.54. Trying to see if anyone has the headline, let me know. It might just be a technical little thing happening right here. I don't see. Oh, this thing, speaking of Google. So this was pretty bullish yesterday, even though this is not the reason why I think the stock's up 2%. So Adam, who is the CEO of Quora, wrote yesterday on Twitter, at Quora, we recently tested switching from Zoom to Google Meet for a week. Google Meet is better in many small ways, but worse in one big way. Audio quality, particularly background noise cancellation and echoing, that kills it. So we are staying on Zoom. Sundar responds. He says, hey, Adam, I'm going to follow up on this offline as we haven't experienced this. We are going to debug it to understand the root cause and fix. Thanks for flagging it for us. Pretty bullish to see the CEO of Google doing customer support, right? Not too bad. So it's nice to see Sundar as engaged as he is. Google right here up about 2% right now. But ultimately, at this I/O event, I think he's got to change the narrative. And that's what's going to get the street a lot more excited about Google right now. Okay, let's see some other headlines. We've got Airbnb. Airbnb CEO Brian Chesky introduced a bunch of new features yesterday. Let me know in the Airbnb or you just stick to regular hotels. Here's what he's saying about consumer spending and if tariffs or any level of recession is having an impact on their core business. Airbnb up about 2% currently right now.
Rentals, and now introduce its user base to offerings ranging from spa services to chef-prepared meals or personal training sessions. I spoke with co-founder and CEO Brian Chesky in a wide-ranging interview and asked him about the state of the consumer and travel at this moment.
Despite a lot of fears, despite concerns about tariffs and essentially trade wars diminishing consumer spending, we are still seeing people spending a lot of money. And Airbnb is a pretty good bellwether for the economy. About $90 billion a year is spent. So, for every like $1,100 or so dollars spent in the world, $1 spent on Airbnb. So we get a pretty good front row seat in the economy.
What are you seeing in terms of travel internationally, or at least internationally to the U.S.? I was going to say, we spoke to Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi just last week, and he was saying he was seeing a shift internationally with travel from abroad into the United States, potentially slowing down. Are you seeing the same?
Yeah, a little bit. So what we did call out is that travel into the United States and American travel is a little bit lower. And we're starting to see, like, say, Canadians are traveling a little bit more within Canada. Europeans are starting to stay a little bit more intra-regionally, so they might be staying a little more in Europe. So what we're seeing is not a business slowdown, but a little bit of a redirection of the business. And that may be a temporary phenomenon, but yeah, there is a little bit of a change in the U.S. business.
Since I'm a New Yorker, I should ask, because I read all these articles, New York is facing, it's been the worst, it's really the worst housing shortage in decades. But the city is still suing a hotel for listing on Airbnb. You know this, you've been dealing with this city for a long time. I imagine they might like the services part of your business, but they still don't like the main, the central part, at least thus far. Do you see that changing?
Yeah, I mean, let's just be straight up about it. I don't know if it's the city of New York that doesn't like us. It's the hotel industry in New York that's very politically powerful that doesn't like us, and that probably explains why you can't really get an Airbnb by the night in New York. But I'm hopeful that that's just a temporary phenomenon, because I think part of the reason, Andrew, that for the Airbnb ban in New York was that rental prices are up. There's always homes in Airbnb, and if we could ban Airbnb and reclaim those homes, that housing prices would go down because all this inventory would go back on the rental market. Well, they played out that experiment. And over a year later, what we found is rental prices did not go down. In fact, they went up. They even accelerated. And hotel prices didn't go up, down, they went up. So the only people that really won were the hotel industry. New Yorkers didn't win. I don't think really anyone else kind of won. And so we would love to find a way to get back to New York. And by the way, we're happy to limit it to people's primary residency, homes they actually live in. They can limit the number of nights they rent. We'll be happy to pay and collect and remit hotel tax. So we do.
Okay, so I think there's more to the story than what he's just saying. I researched this a couple of years ago when I was thinking of investing in Airbnb. There's a lot of weird regulatory issues they have to deal with. Is it some people that just is it like kind of Uber versus taxi? They're afraid of innovation type of debate? Yes. But there are also some legitimate concerns about what Airbnb does for property values, rental values, and then ultimately the hotel industry, which is affecting different consumers. So I think there's more to the story. I think Airbnb will survive. I do use the product. I have had some issues with the product, and hotels aren't the worst alternative that are relatively the same price. Airbnb is more so for the experience, in my opinion. Airbnb right here, 139, up about 1%. But yeah, there's going to be a bit more headwinds, I think, with regulations over the future trajectory of their business. But the services stuff they introduced, I think, are very interesting. And essentially, they want to be a go-to experience, right? So if you book a hotel book an Airbnb in Tokyo, they want you to be able to book an experience inside of Tokyo. So they have to partner with a lot of vendors and third-party service providers. And that could lead to additional revenue, margin expansion for them. And then ultimately their ability to scale as a kind of like go-to de facto travel company versus just a lodging company, a place for you to stay for a couple nights. So that's kind of the bull case on Airbnb. Hasn't really done well for investors, did really well for the VCs when they went public. But as an investor, this stock has meaningfully underperformed over the past 5 years since they've been public. So this one, not really the most exciting opportunity currently in the market right now. What is exciting is that it is someone's birthday right here in the chat. Shout out to Melanie. It is Melanie's birthday. Everyone can wish her a awesome happy birthday in the chat. Melanie is someone who's been supporting the channel for, I don't know, I think a year now, a year and a half. She's been in the chat for a while. And she is a super, super cool person, super bullish on Rocket Lab. So for anyone who's in the Rocket Lab cult, Melanie is with you in that Rocket Lab. And one of the reasons I like Melanie is because she's a teacher. And my mom and my sister were teachers. Teachers have a very special place in my heart. So, you know, I remember, you remember take your kid to work day? I remember being 10, 11 years old. My mom took me to work. She was making like $40,000 a year. You know, we were barely getting by, and she was a teacher. That's the only reason we had healthcare. And that was her, you know, first job in the United States. After, well, her first job was in like Walgreens. She was a cashier. Then she had to my mom went to the Harvard of India, and she came to America, and no one cared. Like, that degree was worthless. So she had to go to community college in America, get her degree again in education. She had an accounting degree in India. And then she went down the process of becoming a teacher. And she had me and my sister, right? So she had to be a full-time mom as well. So I remember take your kid to work day, and I would be inside of the classrooms, and just the shit a teacher has to go through, bro. The shit a teacher has to go through. I mean, it's just criminally underpaid. I like, if I ever have any political influence, one of the things I would want to do is to lobby for teachers to get somewhat of a pay raise at least every couple of years, because they go through a lot, dude. They go through a lot to be able to manage kids, especially young kids, teenagers, every single day, 8 hours a day. You know, they get like 40 minutes of a break period. And I saw my mom go through that for 15 years to support our family. So very, very, very happy birthday to Melanie. Thank you for everything you do for teachers and for students as a teacher, and appreciate you being in the chat. But now what Melanie is also doing that a lot of teachers aren't doing is she's investing. Okay, because my sister and my mom have a bunch of teacher friends. I think I told you guys the story the other day. They came over to the house, and you know, my mom has started getting into investing, so she's been talking to them about investing and all this stuff. Tessa right here at 340, and so I was talking with some of her teachers' friends. They're like in their late 30s, early 40s, and you know, they were asking me questions, and then I was answering their questions, and then finally they were like, "So how do I get started?" I was like, "Okay, so you download this app, and then you know, you put in like $3,000-4,000, put in $1,000, just see how it goes." And they're like, "Oh, I wouldn't actually do it." And I was like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, I don't know if I would actually do it. I was like, but you just talked to me for 20 minutes about like what a stock price is. And like, what do you mean you're not going to do it? Just like, well, it's just too risky. I don't want to like, and so I think, and it's not a teacher thing. It's just in general, people are hesitant to do it, right? People are very hesitant to allocate their capital and take the risk, especially teachers that, you know, you got to be very careful with allocating that capital, because it's not like you're getting paid $500,000 a year. So you kind of, that risk in and of itself is really tough for people to internalize. So the fact that Melanie's actually investing, the fact that she's taking the time to allocate capital, the fact that she wants to, you know, be a part of the investor class, I think is the biggest thing in the world. And it matters so much for people that historically don't have access to it. And a lot of teachers, a lot of those types of people are just too scared to do it. She says, true facts. I tried to talk to all my teacher friends about investing in Palantir, and they said too risky was the response. It's always too risky, right? And it is risky. It's really risky. But the point is, if you don't take any risk, it's very hard to get anywhere in life, right? Like, when I take a risk and say my jokes on the stream in front of thousands of people, there might be some crickets. Thankfully, I'm a pretty good risk taker when it comes to making jokes, and there's very few crickets. I mean, there's just a lot of laughter. And so if I never took the risk to say my jokes, then you guys wouldn't get the blessings of humor. So you got to take the risk. You always have to take a risk to get to anywhere you want in life. I know investing is a little bit more scary because it's risk with capital. But in the words of, what is it, Rick Ross, who said this? Scared money don't make money, right? Like, you gotta invest. You have to invest. Brian says, please stop taking the risk. Oh my God. Dude, we are not touching Saratoga. We are not bringing back. If I touch the Saratoga and Nvidia goes back to 115, I don't think you guys will let me live it down. I don't think you guys will let me live it down. So we're going to stay away from the Saratoga. Although I think all of us can afford a little bit more Saratoga, but we are staying away from that. All right, let's get a news update from the White House and see what's going on there.
President continues his deal-making trip. He's in Doha, Qatar this morning, and he is announcing a major deal for Boeing, a purchase of 160 aircraft, the president says. He calls it the largest deal ever for Boeing. In a signing ceremony with the Emir of Qatar, the president appearing very pleased to make this announcement, Carl. It's a major deal for American manufacturing. That's part of why the president has been on this trip, is to generate a lot of business activity for American companies, and he appears to be doing it again right now.
We're just looking at Boeing's share price, Eamon. 206 was 128 on April 7th. That's almost a 60% gain in 4 or 5 weeks.
Wow. Yeah. Look, I mean, this announcement was expected, but I think the number here might be surprising a lot of people to the upside, right? This is a huge purchase.
Eamon, thank you. We have some retail stocks making big moves this morning ahead of Walmart's report tomorrow. American Eagle sinking after the company pulled guidance and writing off $75 million in spring and summer merchandise amid slow sales and steep discounting. The stock down 7.4%. Burberry, meantime, surging after announcing restructuring plans that could lead to nearly 1,700 layoffs, and the company's sales fell less than expected in the fourth quarter. The stock up 16% right now. Some relief for PVH shares as well after a rough start to the year. Jefferies upgrading the Calvin Klein parent to buy from hold, arguing shares can rally 30% from here, in part due to improving trade relations with China. Shares up 6.5%.
Boeing, that's pretty good. It's actually 200, including the 40, so it's over $200 billion. But 160 in terms of the jets, that's fantastic. So that's a record, Kelly, and congratulations to Boeing. Get those planes out there.
Let's begin Jefferies aerospace analyst Sheila Kahyaoglu to weigh in on this. So Sheila, to what degree?
Reddit's up 7% right now. Reddit 121 currently right now.
Is this incremental versus what might have been expected, and how does it filter into to Boeing's backlog?
Sure. Thanks so much, Meg. So news reports came out over the weekend that there might be a big order coming out. It looks like it's 160 official aircraft, and Qatar has 130 in its order book. So it's certainly incrementally positive. Actually, one of the favorite notes we wrote this year was about a month ago, and it was about the trade deficit. And the easiest way to solve a trade deficit is with $70 to $400 million Boeing planes. Really eases it up, and President Trump is clearly using that as a negotiating tactic. And in this case, it's working in Boeing's favor. It's extending the backlog for Boeing. It is incremental. These are new jets that they would put in order for.
And of course, it comes at.
All right, so Boeing, again, catching a bid. Reddit, I don't know why that's up 7%, but that's getting some love. Boeing up 2.3. Again, Boeing, not a name that moves that aggressively. It's a dividend-paying name, so that one getting some real love. This thing was at 140 or 150 earlier in the year off some really nasty headlines around profit outlook going down, guidance on top-line revenue going down. They missed, China canceled $10 billion worth of orders from Boeing in the midst of the trade war. So there have definitely been some bad headlines on this, but it's Boeing. They lost some contracts at SpaceX, but it is one of the premier American defense companies that builds most of the airplanes that we travel on every day. So this one catching a bid up about 3%. Tesla 340. Tesla's still holding on to 340. You got Robin at 62.58, and then you got Palantir right here, 129.70. Palantir as well, not necessarily losing any of their momentum. I mean, we're not getting like surging green like we had in the first 15 minutes of the open or yesterday, but we're not really giving a lot of it up. We're not really giving a lot of it up, which I think is the exciting part of some of this momentum. By the way, Elon followed Scotty B again on Twitter. So whatever beef they had, I guess, is under the rug. He unfollowed him last time because they got into a shouting match over who should be the new IRS director. And Elon told Basent that he failed at being a hedge fund manager, and Basent said, "You're not doing shit with Doge." It was like a little fun back and forth. But yeah, I guess he's friends again with him. So there you go. We got Elon to be excited. Here's Elon talking about humanoid robots and the future of AI yesterday with the Saudis.
I think we're headed to a radically different world. I think a good world, an interesting world. My prediction actually for humanoid robots is that ultimately there will be tens of billions. I think everyone will want to have their personal robot. You can think of it like as though you had your own personal C-3PO or R2-D2, but even better. Then who wouldn't want to have their own personal C-3PO, R2-D2? That would be pretty great. I also think it unlocks an immense amount of economic potential, because when you think of like what is the output of an economy, it is productivity per capita times population or capita. Once you have humanoid robots, the actual economic output potential is tremendous. It's really unlimited. Potentially, we could have an economy 10 times the size of the current global economy, where no one wants for anything. Sometimes in AI they talk about universal basic income. I think it's actually going to be universal high income, where anyone can have any goods or services that they want. Now, there obviously are some risks, which illustrate perhaps if we don't do this right, you could have like a James Cameron sort of movie, Terminator. We don't want that one. But having sort of a Star Trek future would be great.
So you got Elon, who's pretty damn bullish on the future of robots. Terminator, by the way, great movie. If no one's ever seen it, it's a really good intellectual understanding of how robots can go, how robots can be in a disarray if they end up developing a mind of their own and then wanting to kill human beings, which I think is a real risk. Once we get AGI, inevitably the robots are going to want to think for themselves. But hopefully we have some checks and balances right there. Rocket Lab up 4.5%. The broader point is, I think Elon's going to be speaking more publicly about robots, and if he can substantiate even a little bit of his public comments with meaningful, call it guidance or just like expectations on companies that are willing to pay billions of dollars for his robots, I think the street will factor that into their valuation. And based on the videos we got last night around Optimus, maybe he's starting to warm up to the fact that this is the way to keep Tesla stock elevated, is forget the auto business, forget FSD, just like get people to realize how big the humanoid robotic opportunity is. Again, I still think we're a couple years out from them being really useful, but the street will look forward to that and price that in if he can convince the street. Also, he's working on Neuralink, right? You got Neuralink as well. So you got Neuralink. I mean, like there's so many different synergies with all of his different companies. You got XAI, Neuralink, building the brain for Optimus. There's a lot of different ways where this could scale better than pretty much everyone else. Skrelly has sold his HIMS position. Really? Did he announce that? Did he actually announce? Is that on Twitter? Let's see. Did he sell HIMS? I don't see the tweet. If anyone has confirmation of that, let me know. Unless he said it on one of his live streams. That would actually, I mean, I don't think it's a big deal, but it would be one of those things where he's probably acknowledging that it's going up way too quick, I guess. Skrelly tends to be, again, he's a pretty good short. He understands how to short companies really well. So he might be thinking the shorts have a little bit of leverage right here and that this run is a bit more unsustainable. He shorted it? He sold HIMS 2 weeks ago? He didn't go short. I don't think he goes. Wait, there's no way he went short, bro. He just went on a podcast talking about why it's stupid to short it. He shorted on earnings. Huh. Okay, well, he's down bad on that short. I didn't know he shorted on earnings. Wait, he just said it's stupid to go short though. Like I don't get why he would go short. Oh, he shorted for fun. Okay, so it was a fun thing. It wasn't like a real thing. Well, he made good money on it. I mean, he had money on it before, I think, this crazy pump. So I guess he hasn't been benefiting off this, I guess, $45 to $60 run. But he did it for fun. Okay, so I guess it wasn't that serious. I just remember listening to him on the podcast, and he was like, it would be stupid to short this. But now you guys are telling me he shorted this. So even if he did it for fun, I guess he kind of went against his own advice there. I don't think there's any news on Rocket Lab. It's up 5%. Nothing that I'm seeing right here. It's a nice move right here, trying to break above 23. Again, Rocket Lab had a good earnings. They fell about 10%. I personally don't see any news that would give Rocket Lab some momentum, but it's up right here about 5%. think there might be a small government contract, but I'm looking at this right now and it's only like $1 million contract. So I don't think that's really moving the stock. Oh, they had a successful mission return? Okay, well, I guess that's the reason. There you go. So Rocket Lab, what mission was it that they returned on? 2 Earth return missions in 2 months. Rocket Lab demonstrates rapid re-entry capability with 3rd Pioneer spacecraft for Varda Space Industries. Okay, there you go. That is your press release right there. That's causing some love. Varda. Okay, cool. Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, Rocket Lab, 22.96, 5%. I have 1,000 shares of this thing. Kind of just there in the portfolio and trusting Peter Beck can pull this off over the next decade. Palantir right here, 129.84. That's up 1.3. And then Hoodie basically stuck at 63. Dude, grab. Freaking grab. Holding on to the 515s, 518 range. Close above 510 would be bullish today. But we got to see if it can get there. The 10-year is gapping up 4.5% basically. Again, this is an issue. It's not the biggest issue given markets are green, but eventually the market's going to want an understanding of, when the hell these rates are going to come down. Where are mortgage rates right now? Did we get the update on mortgage rates? Mortgage applications just came in. They were, wow, look at this. Mortgage application volumes in the U.S. rose by 1.1% from the previous week, slightly extending the 11% jump from the prior period. Applications for a mortgage to buy a new home rose by 2.3%. Dude, the fact that people are applying for a mortgage with, from my understanding, 6.85 to 6.97 rates, I think that's the average rate right now, and I think it should be well over 7%, or at least just slightly over 7%, given that we're now at 4.5 on the 10-year. It means there's a lot of money on the sidelines that wants to buy a house, right? Like, I guess people either sold their stocks and are saying, I'm going to buy a house. People saved up money for the past 5 years since the pandemic and they want to buy a house. Or people are just like, you know what? We know that rates are going to come down. We're going to refinance. So why should we stay on the sidelines if we know we're inevitably going to get to refinance at like 5%, hopefully in a year and a half? And so let's start applying for some mortgages. Kind of feels like that's how it's playing out. But it is pretty incredible because housing inventory is not increasing that dramatically, which is causing the supply and demand imbalance. And new home starts are at their lowest level since 2021. So again, not as much inventory that's out there, which only pushes up prices, which is inflationary, which is why J-Powell needs to cut rates to technically deflate the housing market to an extent, at least. So it's just really interesting to see how people are thinking of the housing market right now. Is Google, what is going on with Googs today, dude? Do people just not care anymore about them being dead? 163 up 2.5%. I don't see any headline. Maybe people know something that's about to be announced and it's moving right here, but Google was at 149 last week. I mean, it's been a nice swing if you bought the dip at all. 163 on Googs. Reddit right here also getting some love. Reddit back to 122. Jason took a position in this yesterday. I think he bought it at 115. So 122.34. That's up about 8.4%. Currently right now as well. Someone bought 1,500 Reddit calls for January 2026 at a 115 strike. It was a single order. They bought 1,500 calls. So you do have some traders that are out there feeling rather bullish on Reddit. But Ty says, I used Gemini 2.5 last night with Cursor to build a website, and it's freaking amazing. Got done in a couple hours with what would have taken me days. Gemini 2.5 is beating all the benchmarks in terms of LLMs. So it makes sense that the integration with third-party applications like Cursor, Tesla, by the way, back up to 341, is working seamlessly. And I think that's all Sundar has to say next week. I mean, all he has to say is, hey, like 2.5 is real. AI is not a joke for us, and we're not going to stop innovating. My Google calls today are up 15%. So again, I paid 60 for these calls. They're worth $27.15 right now. Google would have to get to $210 for me to break even by January 2026. I don't think it's impossible. I just think you would really need a shift in the narrative to get that bump again. Granted, if S&P heads back to 6,500, I feel like with the buybacks, Google should, be able to at least get back into the 190s without that much pressure. But that's the question. All right, so let's do this. Let's do this in the chat. What do you guys think? What do you guys freaking think about the S&P 500 this year? I mean, so let me put some targets. So SPX this year, end of year. Let's do, where are we at right now? 5,800. Let's do 6,000, 6,500, 7,000 for the big bears, and then let's do in the middle 6,200. So this is kind of a bullish poll because I'm assuming we're not going to be below where we are right now, which I could be wrong on. But for the bulls out there, where do you think we kind of end out on the S&P? Shopify killing it as well. Yeah, Shopify. I mean, dude, getting into the NASDAQ was a big deal for them, up 2.7%. So this was at 103 2 days ago, 87 last week. Now back to 110. Is it buybacks today by Google? It could be. Maybe it's Google buying back their stock. I could definitely be helping pump up the shares right now. But outside of that, maybe there is some anticipation before that IO event for people to get excited. Any news on SoFi? We talked about it already. SoFi lost their biggest tech platform customer, Chime. They're not using Galileo anymore. They are using their own integrated financial stack of B2B payment processors. So I guess that is bearish. Having said that, it's not that bearish in terms of their guidance because Anthony Noto tweeted today that our guidance already factored in losing Chime. I guess it's more bearish on a sort of headline that they're losing their biggest tech customer, but it shouldn't affect Q2 or Q3 or fiscal year 2025 revenues. So that is the news on SoFi. SoFi right here, 1421, down about 0.52%. Nvidia, 133.34. She's been stuck there for a little bit. She hit 134 on the market open. 134 resistance right now, if we want to get back there again, is about 114,000 shares, which is not crazy. Palantir, 129.85 would not surprise me if we get back to 130 on Palantir once again as well. What do you think of RZLV? I've never heard of that one. RZLV, Resolve AI Limited. This looks like a small cap. Yeah, it's a very small cap, 553 million. No thoughts on this one. I've never heard of this one. I can put it on my list and look at it. Big Bear AI, still don't know why this one's up 10%. It was up 20%, so it gave back 50% of those gains. But this one getting some love today as well. Okay, 6,500 seems to be the winner right here with 48% of the vote. 23% of you said 7,000. I mean, dude, if we get 7,000 on the S&P, bro, if we get 7,000, it would be wild. The Nebius chat is happening after the bell today on the market close, probably like around 4:15. I'll have someone come on and we'll talk about Nebius. So that'll be on the market close later today. In terms of earnings today, do we have any big earnings? Earnings today, we have Red Cat, drone company. A lot of you guys know that one. Cisco, that'll be a big one. The OpenAI chief of product is now on the board of Cisco. I think we're going to see some collaborations with Cisco and OpenAI pretty soon. And then Cisco signed an agreement to collaborate in Saudi Arabia as well yesterday, so that was a big deal. And then we have Iris Energy, Iren, that's a Bitcoin energy company. And then we have D-Local, D-Lo. This one I think was up a little bit today. Yeah, they're up 3.35%, so we'll have their earnings later today as well. Is VG dumping? VG was pumping yesterday. VG, wow. Yeah, that's down 6%. It was up 10% yesterday, so giving back some of those gains. Again, this is the nature of markets, right? You could be up a lot one day. The next day, you got to be ready to lose some of that. So VG right here, down about 5.8. Again, if you're buying VG, you're buying it for the next decade. You're not really buying it for tomorrow. But long term, I think the DD on that Chris and Matt and Steve have shown is pretty legit. We just need more natural gas. We're going to have way more demand for that. Microsoft right here at 453 as well on the day. Where's Apple? We haven't looked at Apple today. Apple 212. Apple was at 194 last week. It just goes to show you how headlines could dictate short-term price action, but they kind of don't matter. Like that whole Perplexity AI search, losing Google revenue stuff. It was a headline. It created a pretty ugly dip on Apple. The whole market was green. Apple was down 4% last Thursday. And now Apple's right back to where it was at 212. And it seems like no one cares. So this one continuing to get some more momentum. And then Nubank, great earnings on Nubank yesterday, 40% revenue growth. That one is up 3.3% currently right now. Did Palantir sign any deal with the Saudis? No. So I don't think we have any deals from Palantir in regards to the Middle East. They did tweet out yesterday, Palantir is proud to deepen its ties with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. However, there's no specifics on like, what they're doing with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But I think it's still, bullish that Karp. I mean, the fact that, you got to get invited to this stuff, right? The fact that Karp was invited with Elon and Jensen and Lisa Su and all these people to the kingdom, well, it means that he was important enough to play a role there. And the market actually cared. Or not the market, but the kingdom actually cared about meeting him, and Trump cared about him being there. So I think that in and of itself is enough, or was enough yesterday for the stock to pump. I mean, like, if you Tim Cook wasn't there. That doesn't mean Tim Cook's not important, but it just means that, maybe in terms of AI infrastructure investments, Tim Cook and Apple are not really playing that big of a role in Saudi Arabia. But Jensen's going to get a lot of money. Lisa Su's going to get that money. Elon knows he needs the Saudis on his side because that's a lot of demand for robots and self-driving cars. And then Palantir, from a defense perspective, definitely wants to be integrated in that ecosystem across the world. It was funny when Trump called out Tim Cook for not being there. Like, that was hilarious. But the entire vibe of that keynote yesterday was like fun, like yay diplomacy, and everyone just like coming together and excited to embrace what theoretically could be the golden age of AI. And it's ironic that it's happening in the Middle East and not Europe. That's the crazy part, but at least it's happening somewhere. And that is a lot more demand for some of these companies. RGC, so this stock is up 21% of the day. So for those that don't know, this stock went from $3 to $400 in the matter of 2 months. It's up 10,000%. I wouldn't chase it. I don't know why it's up this much. I would imagine it has to do with a breakthrough in some drug that they are working on, given it's a biotech. But it's up another 20% today. And yeah, this one, this is another thing that reminds you how crazy the markets can be. You could have put 10,000 in this stock 2 weeks ago or 2 months ago. You would have had 1.4 million today. But as annoying as it feels to like miss that run, it's also like, would you actually have put $10,000 in some random biotech? Like, when you really look at hindsight, would you actually have? Probably not, because $10,000 is still $10,000, right? Unless you have 10,000 to just burn and you're okay with that going to zero. Like, most people would not take that type of a risk because it's just not calculated. It's literally just a gamble. It's just sometimes, you could win the lottery and it could work out. I would have sold way earlier. Like on a double, I would have been like, oh, I'm up 10,000. I'm taking my money, So it would have been hard to kind of see that entire thing play out. Google 164. She's not stopping. Either they're buying back their shares or some big money's loading up. I mean, Google really getting some momentum, up 3.05% currently right now. All right. What else? We talked about the China headlines. We talked about the Qatar headlines. Grab back at 518. If we can close about 510, that would be awesome today. Oh, here's Sam Altman. This is another clip that he did give a talk at Sequoia yesterday. Here's another clip of him talking about how ChatGPT is being used and how it will be used, and ultimately what it means for the broader AI sector. Again, this is bullish Nvidia because all of these use cases just means more compute and more chips.
Using with ChatGPT that might surprise us.
They really do use it like an operating system. They have like complex ways to set it up to connect it to like a bunch of files, and they have like fairly complex prompts memorized in their head, or like, in something where they paste in and out. And that stuff I think is all cool and impressive. And there's this other thing where like they don't really make life decisions without asking like ChatGPT what they should do. And it has like the full context on every person in their life and what they've talked about. And, the memory thing has been a real change there. But yeah, I think it gross oversimplification, but like older people use ChatGPT as a Google replacement. Maybe people in their 20s and 30s use it as like a life advisor something. And then like people in college use it as an operating system.
Dude, and that's only going to get more intense as reasoning demand continues to get more accelerated across the entire world, across different geographies and demographics. And that just means we need a lot more compute. That just means we need a lot more compute. Here's a chart right here showing a little bit more data in terms of fund managers. So this chart right here is from Bank of America. Fund managers have missed out on the recent stock surge after recently reducing their equity exposure to the lowest level in 2 years. You can see right here, the net percentage from fund managers into U.S. equities is the lowest it's been since basically the middle of 2024. That's where that red circle is on May 25. And then if you look a little bit to the left, you see May of 2024, it was at the highest, or around like that December of 2024, it was at the highest of levels. So again, this is one of like, I think 5 different charts we looked at over the past 2 weeks. It is pretty obvious that people who manage institutional money, family offices, hedge funds, they went risk off. And as D. Luchin says right here, they cannot afford to miss any more. They just can't. If they continue to miss any more, they are going to get a lot of angry calls by their clients. And as a result, that might mean that, they have to start buying at these higher levels. Okay, this could be the headline why Google's running. They are adding an AI mode to the homepage. Google AI mode. They've had this for a minute though, right? I think they're rolling it out to more people right now. And it's not just, oh yeah, there you go. Oh, here it is. Here's a video. Okay, so it's not just, they've had AI mode, but now it's on the actual homepage, not after you type in a result. So you see right there, they replaced the I'm feeling lucky button with AI mode. That's what it looks like. If that's the case, maybe that's why the market is saying they're more excited. Google.com. Okay, so for me, it's different. So look, if I go to Google, this is my Google.com, right? You see AI mode right there. If I press AI mode, so it's not the I'm feeling lucky button. That one's still there. If I click AI mode. Now, this is new to me though, because usually I see AI mode after I search something, not on the homepage. So maybe that is something people are getting excited about, that more people will just like that these searches inevitably will turn into AI searches, and that if Google can monetize that, then they're not going to lose their search volume. This is the first time I'm seeing it here right now. That's dumb. It's an extra button. Yeah, it's kind of not natural. Like I would never click this AI mode thing unless I don't know, unless I really wanted an AI response, but I would just start typing. And I would hope that the typing of my query inevitably turns into something that's an AI generated response. That's how I think naturally most people would want to experience the product. Google right here, 164, up about 3%. I don't know if that's the reason, but I mean, if that is the reason, then maybe they'll expand more on that at the I/O event. Aline says, I'm in Canada. I don't see the AI button. Yeah, I think it's rolling out to different beta testers. I definitely don't think it's rolled out to everyone. But maybe the market's getting a little excited about that. The problem here is that, again, when you're in AI mode, can they monetize it? That's my biggest thing. Can they monetize it? So if they can't monetize it, that search volume, even if it stays elevated, their search revenues will go down. So I think that's still something the market has to factor in. SMCI up 16% again. So that one's still holding on to 16%. Nvidia 133, and then Palantir 129. Not really cracking through above where they were at the market open, but still holding onto some of their levels. I don't have it in Texas. I don't see it in Germany. Yeah, it's definitely being beta rolled out across people. I've used AI mode on Google before. I've just never naturally used it in a search. Like I've used it by literally pressing AI mode and then searching, which is not as natural as just searching, right? But maybe that's where the market wants to see it go. Okay, let's get some coverage right here on Apple and see where the market is thinking of this one.
More. Steve, what have we learned? Hey there, Kurt. We'll get to those discounts in a second, but let's zoom out a little bit, because Apple this year has been falling further behind on artificial intelligence. iPhone sales have been showing sluggish growth, and really no new hit products have really come out of Cupertino recently. And so this morning, analysts at Loop Capital Markets have been asking, what it takes to MAGA, not that MAGA you're thinking of. They're talking about making Apple great again. Now, the emerging theme that we've been looking at after Apple failed to deliver on artificial intelligence, can it get back to making innovative and exciting hardware? That's its bread and butter, of course. There hasn't been a meaningful update to the iPhone since 2020. That was the iPhone 12. That could change this fall, though. Loop lays out some expectations for the next few years of the iPhone. Now, let's start with this year and this fall. There's supposedly going to be an iPhone Air with a super thin design. And beyond that, Loop predicting a release cycle may change with the Pro higher end iPhones launching in the fall and the so-called regular models the following spring. Now, as for next year, Loop laying out they expect the Pro phones and a foldable version, which has reportedly been under development for several years. We've been expecting that one for some time. And then in 2027, that would be, believe it or not, the 20th anniversary edition of the iPhone with a brand new design. Reports say it's supposed to be all screen with the front cameras hidden under the glass. In the meantime, plenty of challenges ahead, especially for China, for Apple. Reuters reporting today that Chinese retailers are selling iPhones at a discount. But I'll just point out here, this is not unusual. We see this happening several times a year, happens around shopping holidays in China. And on top of that, some models have been getting those government subsidies. That seems to be baked into these discounted prices as well. Now, Apple has a lot of ground to recover after declining sales and market share in China. But until Apple gets artificial intelligence in order, which, by the way, might take another year or two, innovative hardware and designs are going to have to do the trick, guys.
Steve, I'm sure you've talked about this already, but the president sort of dig at Tim Cook yesterday in Riyadh when he mentioned that Jensen was there and yet Tim Cook wasn't. Did you read anything into that?
I read it into, for some reason, Tim Cook is living rent-free in the president's head. He seems to be kind of the poster child for bringing manufacturing back to the United States. What I'm curious about is Trump asking for more from Apple behind the scenes? He, by the way, said a couple days ago that when we got that 90-day pause of the China tariffs, that he spoke to Tim Cook that morning. My question starts to become, is Trump trying to extract even more value out of Apple on top of the $1 million donation that Tim Cook personally made to the inauguration, on top of that $500 billion investment over the next 4 years, on top of that new factory in Houston that's going to be building AI servers? Maybe that's not enough for the president, Carl.
Yeah, I was going to say, it would be easy to argue that move to India somehow sticks in the administration's craw.
India's still not in the United States.
Right. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure.
It is a question, though, right? Why did Tim Cook not go to Saudi Arabia? Why did he not go? I'm sure he was invited, right? I mean, it's something to think about. Like, why did he not go? Like, was he that busy? I would imagine, as a CEO, you make some time for that. And I'm pretty sure Apple has enough private jets to get him there. But, like, it's kind of weird, right? Why didn't he show up? Why didn't he show up? I'm like, if the who's who is at that, the who's who of tech is at that conference, you would think Apple, Palantir back to 130, wants to, continue to be in the good graces of the global tech community when they think of AI, infrastructure, investments, etc. It is kind of weird. I mean, the fact that Elon and Sam Altman were there together and they don't like each other at all. In fact, Sam Altman even tweeted at Elon the other day. He was like, "Hey, can we be friends again?" Like, it was like, because Elon retweeted a tweet from 2016 where Sam Altman said he hates Trump. And then Elon was like, he said some smart comment. And then Sam Altman tweeted some article that Elon said something back in 2017 being critical of Trump. And then Sam Altman was like, "Hey, man, we both said bad things about him. Can we just be friends again?" The fact that they were able to be in a room together in Saudi Arabia is telling. Because they don't like each other. So it's kind of weird that Tim Cook wasn't there. It really is weird. You would think that's one of those conferences you don't miss. You don't just, what could be more important than being there at that moment? It's not like Apple's growing. It's not like Tim Cook's out there making sure he can get more distributors to sell that phone because, revenues aren't growing, earnings per share are barely growing. Like what? Was he pressing the buyback button the whole day while everyone was in Saudi Arabia? Like, I know I'm downplaying what Tim Cook does as CEO, but my point is, like, I feel like that would be a conference you don't miss. That would be a conference you don't miss. I've always been so curious how companies buy back their stock. Like, is it like, it's got to be something with like JP Morgan or Morgan Stanley, but like, I just like, just imagine, right? Google's having $70 billion of stock. Imagine the freaking guy who is like responsible for buying back the Google stock. Imagine how fun it would be to like press a button and you buy $500 million of your stock, right? Like, I wonder, do they go through a third-party firm? Does the bank do it? Like, it's so cool to kind of think of how they would do it. If I ever have a public company, yeah, see, Chris, you took the words out. If I ever had a public company, I would make sure my board of directors gets all of our shares on Robinhood. And when I feel like buying back some stock, I would be like, hey, guys, I'm going to buy back some stock. And I would just swipe up, and there you go. That's what I would do. So, and I would tweet about it. I would tweet the screenshot. But look, guys, full transparency, we're buying back our stock. Bullish. So that's what I would do. Grab, are we at 520? Oh, boy. She's actually making a little bit of a move here. She's actually making a little bit of a move. I'm telling you guys, that AI podcast I listened to last night around Grab, it was incredible how engaged I was in that podcast. Obviously, because I care about Grab, but also because it wasn't that bad from an AI perspective. But maybe the market's getting a little excited here. Maybe the market's getting a little excited, dude. This is a big one for me. This stock's a big one for me. This is a big one for me because the first one to kind of enter into this arena was Palantir. The second one to prove that the first one wasn't a fluke was Hood. And now the third one to prove that the first two weren't lucky, to me, is Grab. And I think it would be really easy to be like, oh, I'm super bullish Nvidia, which I am super bullish Nvidia. And I'm happy when Nvidia goes up, and I want to keep doing more DD on it. But in this game, you've got to find the name that no one knows about and then find a thesis around it that can continue to show that you're not perfect, but you have some ability to look at markets and pick stocks, which is essentially what this game is based on. And so this one, like, I want to get the third one, bro. I really want to get the third one. And I cannot tell you the amount of times I've done the numbers over and over and over again in my head to be like, am I crazy? Or is this thing actually, like, is the market just not getting it yet? And the more I do it, the more I'm like, I think the market will eventually recognize it. Just might take some time. By the way, this is the podcast. I just linked it in the chat. Maybe this thumbnail got me to click on this damn thing, dude. There's the thumbnail right there. So yeah, you guys can inquire why I clicked on it, but maybe that thumbnail got me to click on it. But there it is. I put it in the chat. It's very obviously AI. As soon as I clicked on it, I was like, okay, this is obviously AI. But then I started listening, and I was like, it's not bad. Not bad analysis. Not crazy. It's not crazy. Dude, Grindr could have been the third one. Grindr, I would have already had my double, but I can't take credit for that. Like, I mean, yeah, Grindr right here, all-time high is 2408. I just didn't go in heavy enough for me to feel that, like, I called this, Do I think that no one was talking about this at $12, and when I brought it up, everyone laughed, and so it's nice to see it up? Yes, but from a personal finance perspective, I can't say I made a call and then I actually had the conviction to allocate capital behind it, and I deserve credit for the call. Because you can make a call all you want, but are you going to put money in the name, right? Because if you're not putting money in the name, then, like, you're just talking to talk. You got to actually put some money behind a name and get the conviction settled to the point where you should benefit from it. So I just didn't go heavy enough on Grindr for it to be the third one. I think it's going to be Grab, but ultimately we got to see it play out. Rocket Lab getting some love right here. 23. Rocket Lab up 5.72%. Rocket Lab up 5.72%. I guess that Varda mission going well is why Rocket Lab's getting some momentum right here. But this one going up. Didn't Sam tell you about Grab? Yeah. So there was a couple people that told me about Grab. Sam was one of the people that got me into it. And then I looked at Twitter, and there's this one guy named Gab Growth who, like, really helped me do some due diligence to, like, just understand the company. But ultimately, I'm not saying I'm the only guy who called Grab, but my point is, it took me about 6 weeks, starting from end of November 2024 to basically end of January. So call it from, basically those 6 weeks, November to January, of, like, doing the due diligence on my own, of, like, sitting down and really thinking, hey, is this worth putting money into? And once I made the decision by the end of January, then I put out the thesis, and I'm like, all right, this is it. So I think you get inspiration for it. I mean, Grindr, dude, like, the way I got inspired to look at Grindr was because of a CNBC. A YouTube video popped up with the Grindr CEO from 2023, and for some reason, I don't know why, I clicked on it. And then I'm listening to the CEO talk, and I'm like, dude, Grindr, gay dating, Who else does gay dating? And I was like, no one. And then I looked at their numbers. I was like, they're growing. And then I just got obsessed with the idea of like, maybe this could be a monopoly on gay dating. It's trading at a $1.5 billion market cap. It's better than Tinder, Match, and Bumble because it is a segmented part of the population. Maybe there's a thesis here. And so literally the YouTube algorithm is the reason why I even thought of Grindr. Now, a lot of you guys will not believe that story because you probably think there's another reason why I got interested in the name, but I'm genuinely, it popped up on YouTube and I clicked on it. So with Grab, we had Sam who brought it up to me, but Sam's not even that bullish, bro. Sam is like, I don't think Sam's that heavily allocated to the name. He likes it, but it was kind of whatever for him. It was just like more emerging markets region exposure. And then I went on Twitter and there's like one other account that was talking about it. So there's not really a Grab community is what I'm trying to say. And it's hard to really build a community until the stock really gets some more momentum. That's what's so special about Palantir. Palantir had no momentum for 2 years and it built such a good community because people believed in it so much. But on Grab, I'm heavily allocated. I think there's a thesis and I really want this to be the third one that ends up working. But we got to see. We got to see it play out. Could have been Grindr though. It could have been Grindr. Why was your algo showing you gay stuff? Okay, that's a good question. That's definitely that's a good question. That's a good one. But I don't know. I don't know why it popped up. But it popped up, dude. It freaking popped up. I don't know, dude. Like for some reason I clicked and I heard the CEO and I'm like, dude, this is like because I think I was looking for like different weirder picks and then I was just like monopoly, gay dating. You think of 0 to 1, you think of a company that can't be replicated and like people could replicate Grindr, but you can't really replicate the ecosystem they built. So it made sense to me, but I just didn't really invest. I did not invest heavily. Nvidia right here, 133.86, 14 cents away from 134. Let's see if she can get back there. Let's see if she can get back there. 134 resistance is, she's really close, dude. Very close. Only 10,000 shares. I think we should be able to crack that. But yeah, anyway, in the context of Grab, there's like a few of us. I would say me, Sam, Chris is bullish on it, but Chris doesn't care that much about the name. He's like not actively caring about doing DD, but he likes the name, right? And Sam is part of his Patreon, so Sam got him interested in it as well. And there's like a couple counts on Twitter, but there's really like, I would say less than 10 of us that actually care about this name. So there's no real community. And that's why I'm saying this move right here to 520, it's not retail because retail doesn't give a shit about the name. They don't know this name. They don't know what the Southeast Asian super app is. Now, if we get to 750, I think people in the community like Sam, Chris, me, Gab Growth on Twitter, like there's a lot of us that will probably be able to get more buzz around it because once the stock starts moving, retail starts paying attention and people start caring and they want to know what the thesis is. And I think the thesis is so damn good. It just needs the attention, but to get the attention, you need the stock to actually get some momentum, kind of like chicken and the egg. So I think when that happens over the coming months, hopefully we can get more people to care. And again, the Toots bought up 82% of the name. So it's not like they're going to be chasing this thing. This is going to be retail that's chasing it inevitably when people realize there's a thesis. 82.35% of this thing is owned by the Toots. Any news on why Reddit's up 10%? I don't know. I think there's a little bit of a comeback happening with search. Reddit, remember, got hit because they said in their guidance that Google search would affect their traffic. And then Google got hit because they said they might be losing Apple as the default browser or the default search engine on Safari. Both of them kind of recovering today as if those pieces of news didn't matter. And I don't know what headline's causing this other than the market saying, all right, yeah, we kind of just don't care about those negative headlines last week. And that's why Reddit's up 11%. They got an upgrade today? Yeah, but an 11% move on an upgrade, that's a bit aggressive, dude. I feel like this kind of the market just not caring anymore about that Google headwind. Because again, Reddit was at 140 after earnings. And then the CEO on the earnings call was like, yeah, by the way, we might lose some traffic because Google's losing some search traffic. And then boom, the stock fell back to 107. So that narrative has kind of been annoying for Reddit, but it looks like at least today, the street does not care. Just bought some Grab amid. All right, dude. Look, if you get into the name, you got to be ready. This is a long-term hold. I'm not saying Grab's going to go from 5 to 125 like Palantir or even 5 to 60 like Robinhood. I think this has 4 billion shares outstanding. Just the fundamentals are really good. They're getting profitable, but it's not going to be an easy stock to move. However, I do think $10 is not crazy. I think it'll be hard, but I don't think it's going to be impossible to see a doubling on this. So, I don't know. It's like what sometimes you pick a stock and you get so interested in the story and you're like so deep into it and you're obsessed with trying to figure out, hey, do these numbers make sense? And I think the numbers make sense, but it's up to the street now to figure it out. Is Noto doing a fireside chat? Yeah, 1:30. All right, 1:30. Noto is going to be doing a fireside chat, so maybe we get some more details on SoFi. SoFi right here, 14. Wow, SoFi is actually potentially going to give up the 14s. It's holding 14.15. I think it still holds 14. It's been holding that for about 3 days now. So giving back the 14s would be a bit annoying right there. But let's see what Mr. Noto has to say today. My cost on grab is 450. That's my average. Cost basis is 450. And then Rocket Lab getting it. So Rocket Lab's a big mover today. Nvidia can't get through 134, but that's up 3%, which is nice. Hoodie's basically flat. Tesla still up 3%. 340s. Who would have thought after earnings, dude? It would be a 340, but here we are. Amazon flat on the day. Meta also basically flat. SoFi down a little bit. And then Palantir up about 1% as well. Not too bad. Okay, so I want to play a clip right here from Dan Ives. Dan Ives was on a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about Palantir, and the guy was trying to convince him that Palantir is the most overvalued name, like in the. And I didn't listen to this, but Steve took a listen, and he told me to say. So let's transition over to this, and let's see what Dan Ives had to say about Palantir right here.
The spend, and that's also Palantir and service. Now, I mean, the one thing I'd say the difference, and to Gene's point, is that hyperscalers, the reason like a Microsoft is partnering with the Palantir and Oracle is partnering with the Palantir, the reason McDermott and ServiceNow, like they've had such success, because what's happened is the real enterprise use cases, like I'm saying in terms like insurance company, like a retail, a transportation, a logistics, or I'm just giving you some examples of ones that I know. They're not going to Microsoft. They're going to Palantir, ServiceNow. I could even argue like IBM, because of where they play, is actually starting to get.
But couldn't you make the case that not a lot of them are going to Palantir? They're going to have $4 billion in revenue. You know what I mean? Like, think about that. Like, it's just like, what sort of contracts are they getting from the enterprise? Half their sales are, 45% or so of the government. You know what I mean? So, like, I don't know. It just seems like a name that it seems buzzy. It's got a $275 billion market cap. It's got, trades at 60, 70 times sales. You know what I mean?
I would like to take, because it's funny. Like I've talked, like, I really respect like your opinion. I think you have, because you're not just, and there's actually like, sometimes I'd say like when I hear people like online where they're like, oh, Nathan the bet,
to be fair, Nathan was bearish all of 2024 for those that don't know him. So he kind of switched towards the end of 2024, but a lot of people did not believe in the rally we were having in 2024. Two people that did believe was Dan Ives and Tom Lee, right? And so from that perspective, that's kind of why they understood Palantir and Nvidia back in 2024. Real quick, Rocket Lab 2362. Looks like that Varda headline was bullish. This thing may be pushing 24. Let me check resistance real quick on Rocket Lab right here. $24 resistance on Rocket Lab is 19,000 shares. Not that crazy. The Varda headline of the successful mission is probably why we're seeing some of this momentum and maybe a little bit of a delayed earnings reaction on Rock Lab, up about 8% here right now.
I disagree with that, because sometimes people are just bearish just to be bearish. Like you being, you have a very high aptitude in terms of like tech knowledge. You understand the ecosystem well. So when you're bearish, it's not just on to be bearish. And to that point, like when it comes to Palantir, I think like if you went to a boot camp, just went into a boot camp in terms of like a Palantir boot camp, be like, no, I have no view.
By the way, they're like 20 yards from us, right?
No, exactly.
On the other side of the wall. So maybe they'll let me into a boot camp.
And I actually think if you saw the way that they're able to break down data, their algorithm in terms of just actual use cases, customers, that I do think you'd have a different view from a technology perspective. Like there's a lot of companies like buzzy, but this is different. I actually think this is one where like they truly, when I'm looking at the next few years, and you said to me, who's a company that could be in that conversation? I know like they top 10 valuable now. I do think Palantir, from a technology perspective, is one of those. Because look, Dan, I can tell you, if I'm tracking 75 to 80 large AI enterprise deals, Palantir is in the vast majority, including if they're going to get it or they're definitely
What
involved.
size deals generally? Like
Rigetti's up 20% and Oklo's up 20%. So a quantum name and a nuclear name both pumping up 20% on the day.
I mean, 3 to 5 million, and then a lot of them are probably 8 figures, like in terms of potential, if you think about over the course of 2-3 years. So if I felt like I was doing checks and I'm like, where's Palantir? Then I'd agree with you. It's like, okay, it's buzzy, but it is the opposite. Like, in other words, like I see them coming up more in terms of strategically where they're coming up. Now, I could argue on the other side, like, are there competitive threats when it comes to like, what about Snowflake's business model? Like, what about like Mongo? Like, when you think about like a lot of other players, like I actually think Palantir has kind of been, it's not just because of CARP, it's like a new kid in the block, but on the enterprise side.
By the way, he's been around for 20 years. I mean,
But,
so like,
no, but he's been around 20 years, but remember, much more government focused, Western government, not as much enterprise, like in terms of just going into a typical bank.
So they have 500. I went to Perplexity. I love just doing this. They have 554 enterprise customers right now. Okay. That's a 42% increase from the prior year and 11% sequential increase from the previous quarter. So if you're telling me 3 to 5, you're saying there's 10 to 15 million, like these are the size of the contracts. I mean,
and some of them could be, when you think about a Palantir, like when you think about some of these deals that could be 40, 50, 60 million, especially even on some of the government AI deals.
But that's over years. That's
no,
not like
of
a
course,
1 year.
of course, 100%.
But I'm saying it's got $3.9 billion in expected sales this year. Like, give me another 100, you know what I mean, of these clients. If it was up 11% sequentially, that's 55, right? Or something like that. It was up 42% year over year.
And $1 billion, like when you think about U.S. commercial, like the trajectory now, like it's like $1 billion.
I just don't know how you get there. I just don't know how this company ever grows into this valuation. Throw $2 billion more on it next year. And you know what I mean? Like, so now.
But to your point, that's my view is like, it's not just going to stay at this trajectory. In other words, when I look out in the next 12 to 18 months, I'm not going to compare it to like Salesforce in terms of how they grew into valuation, but I believe they're going to have significant step ups in terms of what we see in U.S. commercial.
Listen, Dan, in the history of the stock market, there's never been a company that was profitable, right? That had a revenue base like this that traded at 70 times sales. It's never happened. I don't even have that data. I'm telling you that's never happened.
No, and
like,
you're
you know
saying
what I mean?
that without a bow tie, like without being like a market historian.
I'm just saying, like it's absolutely without a bow tie. I like that. No, I see what you did there. You know what I'm saying? So like to me, I think this is the biggest accident waiting to happen in the entire stock market.
But okay, I understand what you're saying in terms of valuation of obviously like when stocks get hit. This is one where it's like you sneeze and it goes from 120, and we saw that especially like last time we were together. I actually think for the market, the reason it's so important to look what Palantir is doing, I think it's the best example of use cases in terms of AI. And look, like I'll be like next few weeks, I'm in a bunch of Palantir customer events. To me, it's really I'm trying to basically get my arms around like how big could this be?
You know what's interesting? So are a lot of your peers, a lot of your fellow analysts to go to those events too, or no?
I mean, obviously like some go to a bunch of events, but look, I mean, Palantir is also a name where it's like, you can't it's not spoon fed to you. I think actually one of the issues with Palantir has been, they're not someone that like, they have like a big analyst day.
Yeah.
And you go.
Is that coming up or no?
No,
Okay.
but I'm saying you go there with the Peter Millar vest, in New York, get the chicken lunch, and then all of a sudden they spoon feed you some 3-5 year growth
So you
rate.
don't find that particularly useful?
Look, my career has been built. I'll go to some analyst day user conference, and a lot of analysts are sitting there, with the Peter Millars. I'm usually talking to customers.
Yeah, you want to hear from
out
the buyers.
So that's just.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Just for me, that's what.
So you and I have talked about this a lot. To somebody on the buy side, to your actual customers, they don't really care what your rating is. Back in the day, they would like kind of press you. Oh, why do you still have a buy in this stock? Blah 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 blah. That's where. And it used to be that upgrades, downgrades could have moved stocks too, right? I think people have longer term time horizons now, especially your customers, right? So there's 28 analysts who cover the stock. Okay, I'm just looking at this. And there are 7 that have a buy, 16 have a hold, 5 have a sell. You are one of those 7. And I will tell you, I don't know the names of any of the other shops that have a buy on it.
Well, Bank of America,
Do they?
The analyst of Bank of America has been like one of the most well-regarded bulls on it, like Mariana.
Okay. Well, then I'm missing that. And they have a buy on it. Because
they should have a buy.
Most of the other bulge bracket.
Very negative.
So
negative.
Yeah. And do you like that? I mean, so that's where I'm getting. You're out there. I'm just telling you, I can't find the Bank of America analyst on this list, but if they're not a buy, then you're the only guy that I know who has a really great following and everything, who's got a buy rating.
Look, it's not like I like to be. It's like one of those I like to be in the situations,
not for the sake of it, I guess.
but not for the sake of it. But it's and me and you have talked Tesla for years. I do enjoy names where everyone's super negative.
Yeah.
You feel like sometimes you found something that maybe could take time to play out, like a Palantir. And institutionally, I think this is a good example of one where the smartest person in the room, like the institutional investor, it's like I'm smarter than retail. This is one where it's kind of gotten burned. It's been the opposite, right? Because the smartest institutional investor is I'm not going to look at Palantir, the carb, the whole negative view. And then when the stock goes from bar mitzvah age to 100 and it's part of the S&P 500, as an institutional, that's where you're trying to figure out times when you Roman on the resume. So the thing is it's been enjoyable on this one because I've told you, except for Tesla, I've never gotten more negative institutional.
This is it.
Oh, I mean, on this one, and the hate level is
see, Karp isn't the sort of guy. He's not a divisive figure the way Elon is. Do you know what I'm saying? And he tells a story that actually you can believe. I read a bit of his book that came out, I want to say a few months ago. And, he's clearly, somebody who's been out in front of this space. Some of his co-founders are some of the most brilliant people in technology. They've stuck it out here. You know what I mean? They went public after being around for 20 years. You think about that.
In a direct listing.
Yeah.
And the stock went, I think 31 cents or something.
Yeah. It got killed, but then it was $20 a year ago. Now it's $120. You know what I mean? And to me, I don't care about the price. What I care about is, a lot of folks who watch CNBC or, online or this or whatever, they're hearing this stock, right? And I've never seen anything like this where, I don't know the fundamentals the way you do. I don't talk.
But here's the one thing. But the one thing I would what I would like for you is that if you went to a boot camp, and you came out and you had the same view, and then and that's what I love about you. It's great, but this is one. And how about this? I'm gonna work to get you into boot camp. No, because
I would love it.
I want you to see that angle, to actually understand the technology, understand what they're doing, sit with the programmers, and then to come out and be look, you could still think stock's super expensive, but I just want you to understand what makes them so special.
Well, it's fine. So there's a book. It came out earlier this year. It was in February. The Technological Republic: Hard Power, Soft Belief, and the Future of the West. So this was really and whoever his co-author was, Nicholas Zeminska. And does he work at the company? I can't remember. Thought leader in the space or something like that. And, they lay out a vision for the way AI is going to be used in a world right now.
And Carr's very negative on like he's not bullish on like the concept of like LLMs, right? He's much more about data.
Yeah, so data, and I get it, and I got the point of this book after like 50 pages. I didn't need to read any more of it, and it was written, I think, 2 years ago, by the way, I think in 2023, and I wanted to go in there and have this like change my mind about the stock. You know what I mean? But I can divorce the technology and where it's going from the stock, and that's to me, I got no problem with CARP or the company or their mission. Like again, I just said they're in our office. Yesterday I was in the elevator coming up, and there was these two women who were not engineers. I already talked about it on this pod earlier in the week. You could just tell engineers versus not engineers. And one of them had their the market had just opened, and one of them had their iPhone up with the stock on it.
Yep.
Not a good sign. I'm just saying that's not a good sign when all the people who are working there now are obsessed with the stock price.
But actually, I'd say to the opposite. I actually find Palantirians something for someone that's like spent a lot of time in that ecosystem. I actually, from my experience, it's the opposite. I actually find them less focused on things like stock, as opposed to so many other companies I've been with. It's an obsession. So I agree, but I do agree.
25 years ago, it was an obsession for all the time.
A lot of thoughts on that one. A lot of thoughts. Tesla, by the way, we'll talk about it, but Tesla right here up 3.7%. Tessie 346, trying to get into that 350 range. Let me check resistance at 347, but Tesla right here catching a little bit of a bid currently right now. All right, so I think there was a lot of things that were said there that were interesting. Nvidia 134, Palantir 129. Look, here's my couple takeaways. Number one, could the stock fall from 130 back to 100? Of course, right? It's expensive. So if Dan Nathan's argument right there is that it's too expensive right now, yeah, it's expensive. It was expensive at 50, 60, 70. It's expensive at 100, expensive at 130. So I would not be surprised to see the stock fall. I think there is a little bit of a normalization process going on, but of course it could fall. So from an expensive perspective, I agree with them. There's nothing to disagree with there. What I think is really interesting, by the way, Tesla 347, there you go. Tesla having a little bit of a move today. Now let me check 348 resistance if we just busted through 347. 348 right here is about 20,000 shares. About 20,000 shares, not a lot of shares waiting at 348. About 24,000 shares. So let's see if we can get through 348. In terms of what they were talking about around the tech, I do think Dan Ives has an argument around going to the boot camp and speaking to the employees. Because I've spoke to the employees before. Maybe there were a couple employees in the elevator that looked at the stock price and he's thinking that's bearish. Sure, that's fine. But the majority of the employees I talked about, they don't give a shit about the stock. They're probably happy that the stock's going up, but they care more about the mission. And that's why the churn rate at Palantir is the lowest churn rate in the entire industry. So from that perspective, I think we're about to hit 348, folks. My goodness, Tesla's moving. 348. There she goes. 24,000 shares out the way. 348 right there on Tesla. 349 is 15,000 shares. 15,000 shares at 349 to break above that. But from my perspective, talking to the employees, they truly do care about the mission. And that's why a lot of them left Google and Meta and all those companies to work at Tesla. Are we about to break 349, bro? 349. There she goes. That's $3 in literally 3 minutes. If I'm not wrong, that means Tesla has added $10.4 billion in the past 3 minutes of market cap. It looks like she wants 350. It looks like she wants 350. 350 resistance right here on Tessie is 165,000 shares. 165,000. I don't know if there's a headline right now. I don't see anything. It feels like this is more just people getting excited. But she's moving. She is absolutely moving. Maybe some of that optimist stuff, again, getting the street excited. It was down in the day, got all the way down to 338. Now back to 347. Palantir 129.75, just below 130. And then Nvidia 134.09 currently right now. So yeah, in terms of that Dan Ives discussion, look, I think the stock's expensive, but I think there is something special about Palantir, something special about their culture, something special about their software. There's a reason clients like the DoD, Airbus, and BP, and then NATO all together want to work with them. So from that perspective, do they have a chance to grow into the valuation? Yes, I think they do. I really do think they have that shot. Is it always going to be an expensive stock? I think for
the history of Palantir, it will always be an expensive stock. But the idea that they're not going to accelerate growth into that 40-50% range, I think it's inevitable they get there. And if they don't, then the stock will be punished. But if they do, which is what the market's expecting, especially from the government sector and the commercial sector combined in the multi-trillion-dollar TAM that is AI, then that should obviously be very, very bullish for Palantir going forward. But again, a lot of these institutional guys, they just look at the multiple and they don't. But the thing is, the multiple at $20 was not cheap. I remember buying it at $20. Like the multiple there, it was more expensive than all the other software names. You kind of just had to look against something else to be able to make a decision to allocate capital towards Palantir. Tesla right here, 347. So got rejected at 349.15. 349.20 was the high of day. It's looking like it's a nice green candle right there. It's really looking like it wants to break through right back to 348. And because it already got through 349, I think it gets back there, and then 350 becomes the big test for the day. Optimus is doing the Trump dance. Yeah, that's exactly what Optimus is doing. Oh man, here we go. Tesla 348. Mr. X says, I have a covered call on Tesla that expires next week. I don't want to be executed. What do I do? So what's your strike on that covered call, first of all? And if you don't want it to be executed, you have to roll it. You have to go into your brokerage and pick a different time and strike to extend the life of the contract. And you just have to add more extrinsic value, which is part of the covered call, right? More time value to the contract to allow Tesla to potentially be below your strike in the future. So rolling is not really that complicated. You just have to be kind of in the right mental state to know exactly where you want to roll. Do you want to roll out a year and get the strike price to 400, or do you want to roll out a couple weeks and get the stock price to, or the strike price to, 375? There's a lot of liquidity. That's the good thing about Tesla, but that's ultimately how you would manage that situation. We are 50 cents away from 350, folks. 350 would be big psychologically. It would be very big psychologically to break through 350. Again, 165,000 shares. Not that crazy for Tesla to break through. And if she's this close, I think she would want to get there. I think she would want to get there. Where is Grabby Grab? Grabby Grab, 515. Grab still holding on to 515. Hoodie, flat on the day. Palantir, 129.90. And then Nvidia still hasn't cracked through 135. But Nvidia, 134.76 right now. Brian, thank you for the $20 super chat. Appreciate it, brother. Appreciate what you do. Keep up the great work. Brian, thank you for being here. Thank all of you for still being with me here. Dude, it's a long stream today. 3 hours. We're into it. And we don't have any conference or anything that we're streaming. So yeah, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. And thank you all for being here. Reddit and Google as well, not slowing down. Reddit freaking 13% up, 14%. And then Googs, there you go, 165, up 4% on the day. Reddit, Google, and Tessie, the big movers right here. Again, Tesla so close to 350. I think she's going to break through. I mean, it's hard to imagine she does it. This was 250 2 weeks ago. So definitely we've had quite a bit of a move on Tesla. When Tesla runs, nothing like it. Yeah, I agree. Do you have Rocket Lab? Yes, I have 1,000 shares of Rocket Lab. I think my average is 2180 on Rocket Lab. So Rocket Lab as well, which is having a great day. I think it's because of that Varda thing. Rocket Lab 2332. It was at 2350. I think 2378 was the high, up 6.8%. It seems like that Varda headline is helping them. SoFi 1409. That's down about 1.4%. And then Tesla, we are 40 cents away, folks. Here it comes. I think it's happening. The buying pressure is here. We will end the stream after we see 350. So hopefully it doesn't tease us, but I think we got a shot. What is going on with Reddit? I honestly don't know what's happening with Reddit. I don't see, outside of the analyst upgrade they got today, I don't know why Reddit is that green. But it's moving. All right, here we go, dude. 20 cents. We got 20 cents. It gets rejected every time at that 349.80 level. The buying pressure is here. 171,000 shares. 7 cents. Here we go. 10 cents. It's going to be sooner than later. I don't see it on my screen. Oh, no, did we touch? I think we touched it. I think it touched. I think it touched it. Okay, so Robin is still showing the wall. The wall should disappear in a second. I think it touched. It touched for a literal millisecond of a millisecond, but it did touch 350. So there you go. You got 350. It should be right back there pretty soon. It should be right back there pretty soon. But yes, it touched 350. Some of your brokerages might not be showing it. It wasn't enough for it to be universal across every brokerage. So I think it should be getting there. But it touched 350. Like Legend is showing 350, but then my Robinhood app is showing 349.99. So it needs to like actually get above it to sustain 350. TOS shows 350. Yeah, a bunch of these are showing 350. I think it'll break through, bro. It'll break through. It will get, if it just touched it, it'll break through again. That usually tends to happen when you're this close on a momentum name like a Tesla. So we should see it. We should see it get there. Google 165. Google again getting some love. Reddit's up 14%. Palantir 129. And then Nvidia right here 134. Schwab showed 350. Yeah. Dude, it definitely, I see it right there. You can see it on Legend on the screen. It says 350. It was just so quick that whoever bought it right there immediately, there was a counterparty that was selling it aggressively at 350. But there you go. 350 on Tessie. Now it's just a question of it can get back. Yeah, it's getting rejected hard at 350, dude. It was very quick. And then it got hit. Now it's back under 349. I think we get it back above, but maybe it takes a little bit of time to break through. TSL having a nice day. Yep. Leverage TSL is having a nice day. We rang the bell for Palantir yesterday at 1:30. Rang the big bell for 1:30 on Palantir. The next time we ring the big bell is 1:35. So if we can get to 1:35, we'll ring it then. Volumes on Tesla today, 68 million shares. Average volume every day is 123 million. So it's already done more than half of the average volume, and we have about 4 hours left in the day. Nothing really unusual in volumes. It's more so just a decent chunk of buying pressure right here on Tessie. Amit, go back to Weeble until Hood changes colors. Yeah, dude, the colors. I do like Legend more than Weeble, but these colors, dude, they got to change these colors. It's just weird looking at. And I told them this. I was like, guys, it's a little weird looking at pink and orange versus red and green. So they need to change that eventually. But 348.76 on Tesla. Does Weeble say 350 as well? Weeble says, what does Weeble say? Robinhood says 350 on Legend. Weeble says, yeah, Weeble says 350. Yeah, there it is right there. You see it. It was so quick, but there you can see it right there. 350. She got the touch. She got the touch. 350 on Tessie. Don't know if we're going to be able to sustain that. Fear and greed, by the way, it's getting pretty greedy, folks. It's getting pretty greedy. We are at 71 on fear and greed. That is up from 69 yesterday. I think we're probably going to head into extreme greed, and then we'll maybe see a little bit of a retracement. That tends to happen, but we are definitely greedy. Wow, 4.5 on the 10-year. Did we crack above 4.5? Oh my, 4.52 on the U.S. 10-year Treasury bond. All right, markets going full on when it comes to risk mode and saying we are not going to settle for 4.5%. We want to buy Tessie at 350. So that is the one kind of annoying part of this entire rally is that you're seeing these bond yields rise. Eventually, JPOW is going to have to calm this down. I don't think it's going to create a credit crisis or anything like we thought it could back in April, but it means mortgages are going to be more expensive. Auto loans are going to be more expensive. Like everything is affected by the cost of capital. And eventually we need to get these rates to come down. VIX right here, 18.35 as well on the day. All right, that's what we got. Nvidia 134.14, Palantir 129.56. You got Tessie, got to 350. Let's see if it gets back there throughout the end of the day. And then Robinhood right here, 62.76. The S&P 500, I think, is green. Relatively flattish day, 0.19%, but we are green on the S&P 500. All right, Awesome stuff. I will be back on the market close. I will have a friend, Sam, actually, the guy who introduced me to Grab. So we'll get his thoughts on Grab and how he's thinking of the name currently right now, along with Nibs, another name that he is getting excited about. The stock is up like 30% in the past month. So he's also a big HIMS guy. So he's big into HIMS, big into Nibs. He introduced me to Grab about 7 months ago. And then Hood, he's recently been buying a lot more heavily. So we'll get his thoughts on all of those names. And then Amazon is one of his biggest Mag 7 names that he likes. So it'll be fun to talk to him. We'll get a bunch of his thoughts, and we'll try to see how he's thinking of the macro right now. Okay, word of the day on dictionary.com is milestone. I think we kind of know what this word means. So let's try to get a different word of the day. Milestone. We definitely hit some milestones yesterday around Palantir and Nvidia. Oh, this is an interesting one. Okay, so I've heard this word before. Some of you guys probably know this word. I've heard it a long time ago, but I guess this is a better word of the day. Here we go. Scuttlebutt.
Scuttlebutt.
Scuttlebutt refers to rumor or gossip. In other words, talk or stories about someone or something that may not be true. According to Scuttlebutt in the financial markets, the company will be downsizing soon. Okay. There you go. Scuttlebutt. I think a lot of you guys know this word. This is a common word. People have heard of this before, but rumor or gossip. That's what Steve and I should name our podcast, Scuttlebutt. That's hilarious. Steve should be on the close today as well. Steve should be on the close after Sam. So I believe he should be free, and we'll get him on to get his thoughts on what's going on. Shout out to Dougie. I crossed the 100% year-over-year milestone yesterday. Absolutely incredible. Again, markets really rewarding people that bought the dip and just kind of stayed put. And I think the reason they're rewarding those people is because we got a lot of institutional money that has to buy at these higher levels. So that's what we got. Incredible stuff. Congrats to everyone. And thank you all for being here. We'll be back 3:45 on the market close. And we will keep going from there. All right. That's it. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you guys later throughout the day. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.